So Anthony is now here, and just do the whenever you're ready, Anthony, you can unmute.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to welcome everybody here, and thank you for coming to the January Zoning and Development Committee meetings. And now I'll turn it over to Will, who will explain the workings of this Zoom meeting.
All right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Anthony and Sharon. So welcome if this is your first time joining us at one of our virtual committee meetings, or if maybe it's been a long time since you were here. We're excited to have you here. You'll notice that you're going to be muted throughout the duration of the meeting. Only our co-chairs, Elizabeth and Anthony and Sharon, will be unmuted at any given time, and any presenters as we move through the agenda. As we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon on your screen and pressing the raise hand button. It's not the wave, it's not the thumbs up, those will disappear. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in from the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute whenever you're called on. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once one of the co-chairs calls on you. If you're having problems, the chat is available for technical support to help with the Zoom software. It is not to ask questions or make comments to the co-chairs. They will never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to go to the participants section where you'll find the raise hand feature there. And finally, we encourage you not to raise your actual hand or wave at the screen. There's a lot of folks in the room and we may miss you. So if you're having problems, chat me or chat Kevin. We're here to support you guys, and I'll hand it back over to our co-chairs.
Okay, well, I hope that Anthony's here, Sharon is here,
Yes.
that we are the three co-chairs, and we welcome you here. And the first item is 150 East 91st Street, and the people who wanted us to discuss this. This is a new building by Redeemer Presbyterian Church. They've taken down, they or the previous owner has taken down this building, and it has quite a serious effect on the neighboring buildings. And the neighboring buildings wanted to present their case to us. So the three people who I hope are here are Olivier Dupont, Diane Forgione, and Mina Rao. Are they here, Will?
I believe I see at least two of the three.
Okay, well, let's start with them and be joined by the third if he or she shows up.
Yeah, I see Diane and I see Olivier, or sorry if I missed.
Mina's on.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. You all can unmute now at this point, and go ahead.
And you have 10 minutes to explain it to us.
Thanks for giving us this opportunity. Myself, that's Meenakshi Rao, but I go by Meena Rao, Diane Forgione, and Olivier Dupont. We are shareholders in 160 East 91st Street, as well as serving on the board of our co-op. So, as was introduced to you, we are residents of 160 East 91st Street, and our adjacent building to the west is the 150, which was a residential building previously was purchased by the Church Redeemer Church, and now it is under the construction or demolition/construction phase to build a church. We just wanted to present you the history and make a case as how adversely it is affecting all of us in 160 East 91st Street. And so we have a small presentation, and Olivier will start that presentation, and we will go through that presentation. Can Olivier share the screen, Will?
Can I share a screen?
Yeah, assuming that's okay with our co-chairs.
It's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's disabled right now. Okay, now I can. Thank you. Can you see
Yes, yeah. So, we have sort of 4 sub-chapters that we are dividing our presentation to. Basically, this is really regarding the proposal to maintain what we have in what we call as the air and light well that was in existence for a century, which we are going to lose as a result of the construction of the church. So first we will present a brief zoning issue topic, then how it is going to impact on the residents of our building, obviously, and then next, the history of our interactions with the church itself, and what we are proposing and requesting that the community board as well as DOB consider our case. So this is how we are dividing our presentation. Now Olivier will take over talking about the presentation of the zoning issue.
Olivier Dupont, director at 160 East 91st Street. First point is we want to put on the map what it's all about. What's the zoning issue? On this, we want to make it graphic so everybody can understand what it's all about. I think some of you were last week, so some of the slides will be the same. You can see on the right picture 160 East 91st Street and 150 East 91st Street. That's the new building, the building that was purchased in 2020. It's now demolished. In between the 2 buildings, we outline an area in red. That's an air shaft. That air shaft is threatened by the new project. It's mostly on their side of the air shaft. We're going to go into the details, but it's 3 feet on our end and 15 feet on their end. That's another picture where you can see where is the lot line between the 2 lots and what's the 3 feet on our side of the building. So to the left of the picture, you see that's a 160 91st Street, and you can see the fire escape. And the property line is indicated by the red arrow. That's where the church wants to build a wall right there. And of course, demolish and remove the existing air shaft. From a zoning perspective, we understand that the air and light well has existed since 1906. Serving generations of residents on both buildings. The source of that is a drawing I saw yesterday at the DOB. It's in the erection plan of one of the buildings. The buildings at 160 and 150 were constructed under the dictates on the laws of 1898. Those laws were related to the constructions of buildings and specifically about tenements and lodging houses. That's in our DOB complaint, which we filed on November 7. We'll go into details about that. This code of 1898 regulates light and air requirements and in between the building. For 116 years, both buildings had never modified the originally constructed air shaft. We have plans from 1958 showing in great details the existence of the air shaft. It was we have residents in the building since early 1980, where the building was converted into a co-op. It was there. In July 2022, the church filed an erection plans with the DOB, showing they want to a construction of a 12-story building built along the lot line, thus destroying the air shaft. The church mailed us a mandated 10-day notice to our building for objections using our old managing company's name and past address. We never received it, and we could not make a timely objection. We filed our complaint in November 7 after the deadline to object. It's my last point on this first slide, but there was a Spanish flu, as you know, in 1918. And after that, we understand the building codes change were meant to ensure actually greater air shaft between buildings. We find it ironic that, 1 century later, after we have an airborne pandemic, such as the same magnitude of the Spanish flu, we would be very shocked if the light and air would no longer count as a health condition for residents of New York City in our building. This is the main, so I think I put on the map that first issue for us, which is the zoning issue. And now I'll let explain the impact. Let Mina explain the impact on our residents, shareholders, but as well as on, all the shareholders of the building.
Mina's on mute. Mina, you're muted.
Yeah, Mina's muted. Can we unmute Mina?
Yeah, thank you, because I didn't have the capacity to unmute myself at that. Thank you. So the impact, we are really going to be impacted tremendously, to say the least. But we have units going from A to P. We are an 8-story building. 24 units in what we call as the N, O, and P lines, or in other words, 20% of the units in our building are going to be tremendously affected by the loss of this air shaft that has existed, as Olivier explained. 8 of these units in the O line have only one window in their main living area. These are studios, and we think that they are going to become really non-habitable as a result of just having these 3 feet into the wall. And as a result of the pandemic, everybody is working from home, etc., etc. And then their fire escape is also right there next to that window. So they are not really going to have any leeway there at all. So the O line is going to be tremendously impacted. And so will the N and P lines, but N and P lines are 1-bedroom apartments. They have another window. We will show it to you in the next slides. But also, it is not only going to be affecting these units which are directly impacted by the Redeemer Church's building. As a result of this, obviously, the whole building's value is going to go down. We have quite a high percentage of retirees who are living there, or who have rented this as as subsidizing their retirement income. And this is going to be highly impacting their lifestyle and the cost of living and so on and so forth. So it is not just the loss of air and light to these directly affected lines, but it is going to affect our whole building, which has 125 units. Olivier, next slide, please. Yeah, so these are this is the drawing of the N apartment. So the 2 windows that are pointed by the red arrows are the ones that are going to be impacted by the church building close to us. So they will just have 3 feet staring into the wall of the new building by the church, if they do end up building the way they are proposing. So the bedrooms will be severely affected, losing obviously significant light and air. Next slide, please. Apartments, as I said, this is a studio, and you notice that the main window that this studio has is that double window with the first red arrow, and there is a tiny window in the bathroom. Both are facing the church building. Both will be impacted, but obviously the big room, the living space, which is the only living space that these residents who are residing in O line are going to be tremendously impacted by. Fire escape is really through that living room window. So that is that. The fire escape will be almost touching the wall of the church. And the P as well, you will notice that P is a 1-bedroom studio. These are all small, even though they are 1-bedroom apartments. Our building is really made up of studios and small 1-bedroom apartments. Once again, their window in the living room that is pointed by the red arrow on this slide, they're going to lose the air and light. And the fire escape access is through the bedroom windows. So we are not certain whether that will be affected from looking at this diagram. So the next slide will be one of our shareholders and co-directors of the board, Diane Forgeon, is going to, she is a part of the O line. She has apartment in the O line, and she is going to explain in detail what she would personally experience by the loss of this air and light.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm going to read to make it more efficient in time. I'm going to read what I've prepared. My name is Diane Forgione, and I reside at 160 East 91st Street. I am here to tell you about the grave impact the Redeemer Church project will have directly upon me should they not include a light well in their building plans. I live in a 284 square foot studio where my only 2 windows face the church project. With the removal of the previous light well, I will be completely devoid of light. I will have no ability to open my window and circulate my apartment with fresh air. More importantly, the church's plans will bring their building directly up to my fire escape. I am in great fear that if I should ever need to use the fire escape in a fire, there will be nowhere for the smoke to go, and I will perish while attempting to scale the ladders. I am 56 years old and plan to live here indefinitely. Additionally, I just paid my mortgage off. This is all I have financially. The loss in value to my apartment will be devastating and will strongly affect my ability to retire. I have been living here for 25 years. I moved here in 1997 after leaving my parents' home for the first time. I started out as a renter and then bought my apartment from the gentleman who rented it to me. I thought I'd spend all my working years here building up my nest egg from scratch. The church project is literally and figuratively squeezing me out of my home. We have been asking the church for 2 years to scale back 5 feet of space, but they have been resolute from the start that they will not give up so much as an inch in their plans. The church is upsetting the livelihood of a building that's been a pillar of our neighborhood for 100 years. The well-being of the people residing here is not worth 5 feet of space to them. The church is showing us no mercy or compassion. So I am here now very humbly and respectfully asking for your attention and any assistance you can provide in this matter. I thank you very much for your time. Next slide.
Thank you. My next slide is, and I'm sure you want to know that, have you raised your concerns with the church directly? And we have.
You've stopped sharing your screen, by the way.
Yeah, I'm going to start it right now. Yeah. So let me give you a history of where we what happened with the church. We were aware in 2020 when they purchased the lot, and in May 2021 they requested a meeting where they would explain what they were going to do, and we happily attended that meeting. The meeting was a very had a lot of people on their side, many members of their board. Pastor Show was there too. The people leading the project were there, and all the board on our end, and our attorney was also in attendance. During that first meeting, they told us we want to build across the lot line. So we were immediately aware of their plans, and we immediately raised them that that's a concern for us. We are happily, actually, we see value in their for the community to have the community center of the church in the future. But we've been there for a long time with an air shaft that has 116 years of age, and would like to maintain that. They said they would come back to us 3 weeks later. We didn't hear from them until September of 2021. In September, we received an email through their attorneys saying, "Oh, we want a meeting with you where we'll explain to you why we cannot maintain the air shaft." So we were quite surprised, of course disappointed, but we were quite surprised that he would not even ask us what we thought, what was important for us, or what were our arguments about keeping the air shaft. So we declined to meet with them in September 2021. In 2022, a negotiation happened with them around the license agreement. They need access protections to our building to be able to demolish the building, which they have done. And they tried to negotiate license agreement that would cover the demolition of the building, but also the construction of the building. And we denied, we decided only to negotiate the demolition of the building, because for us, agreeing to a license agreement that would cover the erection part, that where they would basically build along the lot line, was basically shooting ourselves in the foot. And we said to them, we are not going to agree to a license agreement that would cover the erection of the plan of your building. And we had, I can tell you, a meeting with them where we had the project manager who almost threatened us with, he threatened us with proceedings if we did not accept both demolition and construction. And he was trying to bully us into accepting their terms. And we respectfully declined. There was no proceeding at that point in time, and we signed an agreement that would cover only the demolition. We kept, in July 2022, they filed, without advising us, that they filed their construction permits. they had an obligation to do two things. A 45 notice, there's a 45 notice runs for the public to lodge any objections. You may know that, but they have also an obligation to notify us. We have asked the adjacent building for us to lodge our objections. And they use, in order to do that, while we had like tons of correspondence between us, I received personally, FedEx from them. They didn't even send it to us. They sent it to, the old address of our old managing company, making sure we wouldn't have the ability to object. So that's our, we were not happy about that. You can imagine. We thought we were advised by council at the time to oppose their erection plans, and the way to do it would be through opposing a license a license to build up protections for the erection phase. And we did that. We were sued, and eventually the judge refused to go along our arguments. We cross-moved and asked the judge to rule on the air shaft, which he declined to do. We concurrently filed with the DOB. I mentioned that early in November 7th. This is, before the commissioner. The commissioner right now has not opened on the matter, and that's one principal reason why we are before you. So I'll turn to Mina for the last thing about, what's our proposal to you?
So I see a couple of hands raised. So should we answer that question, or can I finish this last slide of the proposal that we have? The judge said he was not going to rule on the air shaft because it was the hearing was only for the purpose of giving license for protection. So, so he said that is outside of that issue. And so for the protection plan, the license was issued. But our proposal here right now is that we welcome any community organization. We are very happy that we are so close to the 92nd Street Y, and another such organization in the neighborhood is beautiful. The only thing that we are requesting is that our residents' livelihood be not destroyed and our value be not completely, devalued, or at least devalued to a great extent. So. And we understand they bought the building with the understanding that they are able to build a church, a community activity center that would accommodate their larger congregation. So what we are requesting is not, okay, we need to give us the 15 feet or the air shaft space.
Could you summarize it, please? We gave you 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah, what we are asking is for them to just give us 5 feet from their lot line. So that is all that we are asking. So that would be, 5 and 3 on our side would give us a little more breathing space for all the residents that are affected. And really, thanks for listening. And sorry that we went over a little bit.
Okay, and could you tell, I will go to the public first after your presentation, but could you tell us the basis of your lawsuit? So, I mean, the lawsuit that are you referring? If you're referring to the lawsuit, the basis of your lawsuit.
The DOB client, I would assume.
Yeah, go ahead, Olivier.
Yeah, I think we filed so our architect filed on November 7th, 2022, a complaint with the commissioner on the zoning issue that I tried to explain in the first point of my presentation, which is maintaining there's code regulations under which we are governed. Those code regulations are predating the church purchase of the building. We understand that they are laws that protects us on this issue, and we would like the commissioner to be able to rule on that.
And I'll just remind everybody, we're a city agency, so we're not actually allowed to intervene or get involved in any lawsuits because of the separation of powers.
No,
we just need. I would like to know the legal basis, what you are asking for, because I hear you filed a lawsuit, and on what laws would be interesting to us. But anyway, thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll go to the public first. And I think Elaine Walsh will do.
Yes, Elaine is the
see
first
the
hand up.
list?
She is the first hand up. And I'll just remind everybody, if this is your first time joining us, look for the reactions icon at the bottom of your screen and press the raise hand button. Or if you're having a problem finding that, you can chat me or Kevin. Go ahead and unmute, Elaine.
Excuse me, just 1 second. Will, is there a way to find out how many people are here for this item? Is it possible that
Yeah,
they could raise their hands? Or
I wouldn't
I'm just
say
interested
raising
in knowing the
hand
number
is
of people.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
Okay.
raising the hand is probably the best. If you're just here for this item, if you click the reactions icon and press the green check mark box, just so we see that you're here just for this item, and we'll get a count on the bottom of our screen. And so I'll give it a second. If the green check mark goes away, just put it back up. It'll disappear after about 5 seconds. I see 12 or so people, looks like they're here for this.
Okay.
13 maybe, 14. Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Well,
yeah. And then Elaine, if you're ready for her, I can unmute her.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Elaine. You just need to take it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I guess I'm not on video, so I'm not seeing anybody. If you're hearing my voice, I guess, right?
No, we see you now, Elaine.
Okay.
Now you're off. Now you're on.
Let me just say I'm in a state of shock. First, I have one question. This Church of the Redeemer, does it have a church in the community? Or is this a new church with a community center? One. But two, given the Jacob Riis advocacy on housing to permit air and light, I do not understand how this church or any building can block all the lot lines windows on a building that's pre-existing. The fire escape issue is a major issue, and I think the fire department needs to be engaged. How can we, with all the fires we have in this city, have a building now that will have limited access should there be a fire? I'm finding the entire presentation upsetting. I'm a native to Yorkville, and to hear that some church, and please, I'd like to know where it's located and what the relationship is with this building, because it is outrageous. And I admire the co-op for taking their position and also not permitting them to get any other permissions other than the demolition, which I would never have moved forward on. I can only tell you how upsetting this is for the 125 units of people who live in our community, who have struggled, and in our community where we are fighting for affordable housing and reasonable accommodation, to have some religious entity that will not pay taxes on their property do this. So please, could somebody respond to this?
So Olivier speaking. I'm not a member of the church, so I can't speak for them, but I know one of my friends who attended the church for a long time. They've been around for a long time. They were a church hosted in different buildings in the Upper East Side. They do have a community center on the West Side. I understand that they cater to young professionals. That's my understanding of their constituents, but I may be wrong. The bottom line is on a legal issue that you raised about lot line windows. It's not an issue of lot line windows. I mean, I want the committee to understand that our windows are not on the lot line; they are recessed, and so it's not because the lot line litigation on lot line issues is a very different litigation, a different concern. When you build windows on the lot line, there's expectation that it may disappear. The neighbor, built along the lot line, but when there's an air shaft that's been 116 years old and that has been provided air and light for residents of those buildings for a long time, it's a totally different issue. It's an issue of air and light.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate, yes, the shaft is a key feature of many of our older buildings in the community, whether they're tenements or built in the early 1900s. They had shafts.
Yes, and Ellen, I should mention something also that is maybe factually important to for the committee and for everybody is in attendance. Our building was built early 20th century and was a mix of studios and one bedrooms, small studios, 245 square feet, and small one bedrooms. In 2023, it's still the same. It's a tenement. It has more accommodations. We have elevators. We have, bathrooms in each apartment, but it's still the same dimensions in terms of space.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Elaine. The next member of the public, I think, is Manny Gordon.
Yeah, Manny, go ahead and look for a prompt to unmute.
Yep.
You're good.
Yes. Hi, everyone. How are you? You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm a resident of 160 East 91st Street. My apartment's on the N line, and I'm going to be seriously negatively affected by the obliteration of the air and light well. My bedroom will essentially be turned into a jail cell or a coffin, if you will. It just amazes me that here we have a church who is doing everything that is the opposite of what I think a church to be. I'm looking for their compassion. I'm looking for them to love thy neighbor. And I don't understand why they're behaving in this manner towards us. It's so inhumane the way they're behaving. We're only asking for 5 feet of space so that we could have a proper air and light well. And honestly, I just don't think it's too much to ask. And I'm wondering why they won't respond to us in a more congenial fashion. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I add a little bit
can I
to Manny? Sorry.
Yeah, Mina, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, this 5 feet is also not along the entire lot line. So it is only a certain portion of the lot line. So we are not even asking for this 5 feet along the entire lot line. It is only where the air shaft was. So that is a limited portion, probably like 30 or 40% of the lot line. So, so we are not greedy. We are just asking for that limited space. So I just wanted to, let the zoning committee know that we are not asking for 5 feet all along, the only where the air shaft was in existence.
Thank you. I think the next speaker is Ella Bath.
Go ahead, Ella.
Hi, thank you very much. It's hard for me to understand how I could get beyond thinking of this as mean and selfish. I don't know what's more disturbing, the fact that they planned it that way and were totally unconscious of what was surrounding this building, or if they are just immune to a sense of civic pride and concern for people around them. I don't care if it's a church, a bank, or a delicatessen. It is designed to make people miserable, and that should be intolerable to the community. It's really outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there another speaker? I don't see one who isn't a member of the board. Do you see one, Will?
I don't. This is Lo Vandervalk actually just raised his hand. Let's go to Lo.
Okay, Lo.
Lo, look for the prompt on your screen. There you go.
Yeah. My name is Lo Vanderwalt. I'm representing Carnegie Neighbors. When this we've been following from a distance this application, and when the buildings department issued the review period, we had George Janes look at it, and so we looked at it from a technical point of view, and we did have objections, and George Janes did make a submission, but we did not get involved in this light well issue because you didn't really see it from the drawings. And when you look at it from the neighboring apartment, the affected apartment, it becomes a totally different picture. And, and seeing this, I can only tell you that, of course, I'm deeply sympathetic to the plight. I wonder if there isn't some kind of a trail of laws or legal opinions or that have dealt with this, because these light wells have to be very common in New York City. And over the course of years, this issue must have come up before. So barring that, however, I would say, try to make another appeal, try to get some intercession and see what might be done. The problem probably at this stage is that the drawings of the building have been completed and they're ready to go, and that involves a lot of expense to redo. So it would take a very creative architect to try to figure out how this could be done in a minimal invasive way for the church itself. But I think the only solution is some sympathetic negotiation, maybe an intercession of an elected official if he or she would be inclined to intervene. But this is a very difficult situation and one that is highly unusual and does deserve attention. Thank you.
Diane, yeah, thank you. I'll give it quickly back to you. So they know of our objection since 2021, long time before they filed their plans. As the judge in the RPAPL 881 proceedings, the one about the access for the protection, said, now that if the church keeps building while we have a pending DOB complaint or proceedings, it's going to be on them if there's an adverse judgment against them. So we hope that I think you're right. If we come to an agreement with them, that would be the best solution for both sides. But if we can't, and if they are stubborn, and we're not going to drop this without a fight, I mean, they can be up on much bigger liabilities than just withdrawing their plans. They'll have to destroy part of it if there's an adverse finding against them.
And Lo, you are correct. They did not indicate on their drawings that apartments exist along their west side of the building or their east side of the building. You're absolutely right. They left that out.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Lo. All right, we'll go to the board, and I think Adam Wald is the first call raised.
We had one more member of the public, Elizabeth. I'm sorry, John Spear.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I was called away and I just got back. I appreciate it. I just briefly want to thank the Manhattan Community Board for actually hearing the concerns of the neighbors. I'm a shareholder at 160 91st. My wife Colleen and I are in apartment 6N, which is on the west side of the building. So we are right next to where this construction is taking place. I heard the little bit of the tail end of the last speaker talking about, the problems they would have in making changes to their plans. And I just want to say, this is an extremely, I don't know if this point has been made, but an extremely wealthy church. That building was purchased next door to us for $29 million. They knocked it down and they're building a new church. And it obviously costs much more than that for them to build this. I don't think that our requests as neighbors are unreasonable. I don't think we're not welcoming Redeemer to the neighborhood. I think, in fact, we are. But I think they've shown virtually no willingness that I've seen to work with us at all on this issue of a very modest light well next to the building. And I find it hard to believe that it's something that can't be done, which is essentially what I keep hearing from the church. And in some ways, I guess this is kind of almost, this is really a big, almost a David versus Goliath kind of thing. I mean, this is a huge organization and we're a very small group. And I don't think we're asking for a great deal. And I'm kind of surprised by the fact they've been so unwilling to work with us. And I think in the court of public opinion, this is not going to look great for Redeemer. And I do appreciate, again, the board hearing our complaints. And I really think that if they were willing to work with us, we could come to some kind of accommodation. But so far, there doesn't seem to be any willingness on the part of the church to work with us at all. And I think if they want to be the good neighbor they claim that they are, I think they should do that. And so I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Will, I think we have another member of the public. And then in order to move this along, I hope that we'll perhaps put more members of the public at the end of the meeting in order to get to the subsequent items. Miss Ivanova?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Saskia.
Yes.
I'm also a shareholder at 160 East 91st Street, and I just wanted to share that I don't think this is the first time that the Redeemer Church has been a difficult neighbor. I believe I saw an article on the internet that when they were constructing their church on the west side, they also had a dispute with the neighboring buildings that they built like a terrace or something that they had to subsequently adjust. So I don't know how that's relevant, but I'm just concerned that they have a history of not having any regard to the neighboring buildings, and that they're still going full speed on constructing this building next door to us, which will adversely impact so many homes.
Asia, Olivier, I didn't go into the details because we only had 10 minutes, but I think people should know that while they were demolishing our building, they destroyed one of our cameras. They plugged their outlets into one of the neighbors' outlets. They came into our building without seeking consent. They they destroyed everything. They removed earth on the lot adjoining us. There was a huge rain the day after, which penetrated into and ruined the entire apartment of one of the shareholders, and maybe affected our foundations. So this is, I don't know if it's the church, but their general contractor we have a lot of issues with their general contractors and with them as well.
Thank you. And I'm sure I'm not going to put them all on now to talk about it, but we have architects on the board, and I'm not an architect, but they have, within their plan, they do have they could build higher there to get the lost space. I never am a great fan of things, but there is a height limit, but they're well within it. And I think they're well within the FAR limit. So I think that there should be flexibility there, I would suggest it. Adam Wald?
Elizabeth, if I may add to that, they told us as much in the first meeting, and they told us that because they were very close to Lexington Avenue, they had the ability to go way beyond the 12 stories that they are currently building. So yes, you're right about that.
So thank you for the presentation and for informing us of this issue. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Yes. What I would say is my first statement would be I'm not sure that this is actually the proper forum for a private dispute between a corporation and a nonprofit. But setting that aside, my question would be, in this process, when were there offers made by the cooperative to the church to purchase this easement for light and air? They are the ones who are building as of right. It is your building that does not have the adequate light well. So if you wanted to have that 5 feet, was there a financial offer made to the church to acquire that 5 feet of light and air easement?
So I think there was
we did not do that.
Yeah,
No.
there was never any offer.
It seems to me like that is something that should have happened or should happen. There should be some sort of negotiation a financial, you essentially want us to settle a dispute, but you haven't made a financial offer in order to acquire this light and air easement.
So what exactly happened, as Olivier showed in the timeline of the meetings, from the very beginning, they made it extremely clear. They said, you can come to the meetings, but we are not budging on up to where we are building. That is non-negotiable, they said, whether monetarily or however you want to. So, unfortunately, that option was not available for us.
Adam, it was
Okay.
never, they were very clear. I mean, you have to understand, we're not dealing with the regular church here. It was not, we don't have a pastor coming and says, oh, we have a great project for the community. We had people from Goldman Sachs on the board on the other side. We were in front of corporate America. I mean, they had a bulldozer, they had a plan, and we were just in reasons for them. That's how I felt. Maybe other members didn't feel it this way. And it was never, they didn't even open the door for that. I mean, they even told us that, the air shaft was going, if we were to respect the air shaft, they wouldn't be able to build the kind of sanctuary they want to build. Okay. The 15 feet recess. We're not even asking that 5 feet. I mean, they may build, if there's a recess of 5 feet, they may lose a couple of seats of the 500 person sanctuary. Maybe it's going to go down to 480 or 470. But they never offered that, at this point in time. So it was never really a point of discussion.
Okay, but I mean, other than the fact that they're building an as-of-right project, I don't really know what the Zoning and Development Committee can really do to stop people from building as-of-right projects in the city of New York. That's not something we've ever done, either in this board and other boards. We don't stop people from building as-of-right. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, the various co-chairs of the committee, but I don't believe that that's the business of the Zoning and Development Committee, is to stop people from building according to the city's zoning regulations.
I just can I
Well,
say
of course,
something?
you're absolutely right, Adam.
But it's based on our understanding of the law, and it's not as there's a lot of very gray area, especially in light and air well, and especially when you have a light and air well has been going, has been in existence for 116 years, and that were built in a time where there were different codes that mandated those spaces. And so my understanding is that there's different criterions that may exist. Actually, we're looking into it right now, that may actually give us a claim, a real claim, as of a real right to have this maintained. I think we understand you don't have the power. Maybe I'm wrong about that, to stop them from constructing whatever they would want to build, Adam. But I think you have the power to make a proposal to the commissioner to look into it a little bit in more details. I think that's what we're trying to accomplish tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just follow up on the question that Elaine, or the comment that so eloquently put by Elaine? So Elaine, yes, Olivier mentioned that there is a campus, or there is a church on the west side, but I was still trying to get hold of one of the articles which mentioned how many more churches they want to build and how much they want to expand. So it is not that, by losing these 5 feet of the air well area, that their growth is going to be impeded. As soon as I find that article, I will send it to the community board. So, the 5 feet in their overall global reach desire that they have is not going to matter much at all. It is going to be really very insignificant. So, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you very much. Ed Hartzog?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks, Sharon and Anthony, and folks who came tonight for the presentation. Very informative. Just a couple of comments. I agree with Adam. One of my questions sort of follows up on what somebody asked, I think, before, which is if you filed a lawsuit. I was curious if you've retained an attorney. If they were with you this evening, if they, and I don't want to turn this into a legal clinic, God forbid, but just to have a grip on where we are and in terms of remedies, because I do very much agree with Adam on 2 points. One, I'm not a land use lawyer, but I don't think we have any kind of power to stop anybody, or anybody does, from building an as of right building. But that's not to say that what you've been telling us is so terrific. I must tell you, when you talk about the sanctuary, the term programmatic needs comes into my mind, and it reminds me of an application about 10 years ago that involved our neighbors down at 440 East 62nd, and one of our favorite hospitals, who was building on a lot line, and ostensibly was unwilling to compromise just a wee bit to allow any bit of light into a rear courtyard, and ostensibly cast co-op apartments in darkness year round, which, you know, as anybody in New York knows, that has a bad effect on the value of the apartment. So I'm sympathetic here. I lived on an apartment on the first floor that lived on an air shaft like this. I used to joke around with my wife, you know, about 3 PM when the sun hit a certain, you know, window pane and the apartment lit up. But anyway, with all seriousness, I do think, with all that said, I don't know what we really can do. I do believe it's something for the court of public opinion. I would like to know a couple of things. One, if you have a lawyer, if you filed a lawsuit in New York Supreme Court or any other relevant court of jurisdiction here in New York, what the legal basis is. I think that's something Elizabeth Ashby, the co-chair, asked. And the answers to those. And the last thing is, I guess, for my fellow board members, you know, I'd be amenable. I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to be quiet, but I would be amenable to something, you know, that we could put together some kind of a resolution with an essence of how we feel about the situation. I don't know what kind of weight it would have, quite frankly, but
I would
I
second
think that would be
it.
something we could do. But anyway, I leave that to others. That's just my thoughts, and I'll be quiet and let others who are much smarter on this talk. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ed. Olivier again. We don't have any attorney attending for us at that meeting. We are represented. We don't have, that's why I think we were confused by Elizabeth's question. There's no lawsuits that we initiated. We filed a DOB complaint. And that DOB complaint filed in November. That doesn't mean we're not going to file any lawsuits down the road, but at this point in time, the only thing that exists is a DOB complaint filed in November by our architect, claiming that the impact of the disappearance of the air and light well on the issues we raised with you on health, security, and I can't remember, it's my presentation. But the 3 main aspects that were impacted by the Redeemers project. We understand that you have no power to stop the church from doing. So that's not what we're seeking. Well, I think what we're looking for is a proposal to put to the attention of the commissioner to raise his concern or his awareness of that issue. And again, in respect to the DOB complaint, it's really what we allege in the complaint and what we may allege in subsequent lawsuits is a question of zoning and the maintaining of that light and air well based on the applications of code regulations dating back from 1898.
Yeah, Ed, I want to add to that. Our building has a building lawyer who was the one who negotiated the licensing. And then for the protection plan that, you know, we were sued that church needs access, that was represented by another attorney. So yeah, so we have had attorneys representing us because, as you know, we are laymen, we are the board, we are different professionals sitting on the board, but yes, we have had those. And the complaint has been filed. And if we do find a legal basis, then we will obviously have an attorney representing us.
We already have legal basis, but I think if we find other legal basis, we'll happily file them and throw them at the church.
Thank you. Michelle Birnbaum?
Thank you. Yeah, in light of the discussion, I will make a resolution and then speak to it if seconded. And the resolution is to support 160 East 91st Street in their effort to maintain the comfort and livability of their apartments. And I would, something like that, I don't mind rewording, but I wouldn't get into any specifics. So if anybody wants to second that, I'll then speak. Okay, Marco seconded it. Just with a couple of concerns and a couple of questions. It does seem, I heard in the presentation that you've got, there's actually a 15-foot light well, but you are asking them to maintain 5 feet of the 15. Did I hear that it was 15? Yeah. Okay, so that seems like a pretty substantial amount for them to build 10 feet out. So I would think that if somebody examined this, they could probably help them with those plans. Also, does this light well go down to the street?
No, it doesn't.
No.
No.
Okay,
I mean,
because
are you asking the street level or a street?
Yes, I'm asking if it goes to the street level, because then if it did, I was going to ask whether or not you know if the adjoining property had an easement, or if you had an easement with that property. But if it doesn't go to the street, I guess that's an irrelevant question. So Olivier is saying it does not go to the street.
No.
So therefore, there probably is no easement. Did you ever look into that or no? But if it doesn't go to the street, I guess there isn't. Okay. The other thing I would just like to suggest, the only support that we really could give you is in your effort to maintain the livability of your home. We can't, you don't have a legal a lawsuit at the moment, so we're not violating our code of interfering in a lawsuit, because there is no lawsuit. So all we're doing as community representatives is trying to support you, because in fact you have a very big uphill fight with an entity that is as powerful and as strong and has terrific resources way beyond anything that you could ever accumulate. So to that extent, I hope this committee can support you with that general resolution. In terms of what I would advise, I think you would be well served if you went to your council member and to the fire department and to the emergency services, because it's unbelievable to me that that the egress that would be restricted if this change came to pass would be acceptable on to the emergency services of this city. So I would go to your council member, because you would probably, with their help, assuming they would help, I guess it's Julie Menon who's your council person.
Yeah.
With her help, I imagine she could reach out with you to the fire department, to the police department, to make sure that they could comfortably sign off and actually be comfortable with themselves that they have not put anybody's life in danger by not fighting this proposal.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my best advice at the moment. The resolution's out there. I welcome everybody's discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I just have one question, Michelle? Does the community board have a sort of a good relationship with the councilwoman's office? Because we have reached out to Julie Menon's office and we really did not get much of a response from there, but we have not reached out to the fire department and the police emergency rescue operations, etc. So we were just wondering if you on our behalf put a word to the congresswoman's, councilwoman's office.
Thank you. If this board has a resolution, it will go to Councilwoman Menon, and then she will see our support for this effort. So yes, that would be helpful, no question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and the resolution that the board has decided to take.
Elizabeth Rose?
Thanks, Elizabeth. So I have a couple of questions just from things that I saw in the presentation that I'd like to just clarify. And then I think they're just, you know, in our efforts to support you, one of the things that we can help do is educate you a little bit. In the presentation, you gave a photograph of the fire escape and you put an arrow showing the lot line in a way that implied that the fire escape crossed the lot line and existed on both sides of the lot line. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
No.
that's not accurate. We apologize for that. It was, yeah. So the fire escape does not go into their property as of now. No.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And it sounds like the first time you communicated directly to the Department of Buildings was November 2022?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so you were told that the building adjacent would be going fully to the lot line in the spring of 21, but at that point did not reach out to the Department of Buildings, to the council member, to other city agencies or organizations.
So our understanding, Elizabeth, was that we would be called into meeting to show the detailed building plans, and that was not the case. So we were never shown the detailed. So we were waiting that okay, we will get the detailed building plans, and that is when we would go to the Department of Building DOB. But that never happened. As Olivier explained, when they filed, we were supposed to, the neighboring buildings were supposed to have given the notice. So we have 10 days to file our objection, which unfortunately we did not receive as a result of Redeemer sending it to our old management agency, not the current management agency. And the tracking number still says it is under delivery. So, no one ever received it.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
we felt that the DOB complaint, Elizabeth, just as we learned that they had filed in July, we were not aware of their permits. When we found out about it was early November, we filed on 7th of November. So we were equipped to decide, as soon as we learned about it.
Yeah. So on the education front, and I have tremendous empathy because it does sound like this is a case of Redeemer is operating within as of right. And, it is very difficult to change something or move a mountain on the as of right. I am guessing, and some of the architects on here may be able to confirm this better, that when you were referring to the various zoning requirements for light and air that created that 15-foot air well, or most of that 15-foot air well between the buildings, that was in fact put in because those were the requirements at the time of the construction of 150. And so that air well was put in for the apartments built at 150. The fact that they had an ancillary benefit to your building was an ancillary benefit, as opposed to they were put in order to meet those requirements for your building. They were put in to meet the requirements of the era for that building. And so you truly are sort of the ancillary, both beneficiary and now, unfortunately, suffering as a result of your earlier law construction. In this process, I urge you not to talk about the impact on your building's value or on your apartment's value. The only thing you should be talking about is, does this allow these 24 apartments And I would argue at least 16, both the O and the N line, effectively the bedroom is affected and the bedroom becomes non-habitable or potentially non-habitable. Because even the N line, yes, it has windows for the living room, but effectively this is a 3-foot opening for the bedroom. And that's really needs to be the focus, that for the O line apartments and the N line apartments, there is only this 3 feet remaining opening for the bedroom window. The P apartments, based on your drawings, honestly, really not affected. You lose a kitchen window that is in an open room where you have multiple windows at the front of the room. So you're really the 2 lines that are affected are the N and the P lines, or the N and the O lines. And it's all got to be about just the habitability of those 16 bedrooms. And that's really the argument. On Michelle, on the resolution, I think we also need to be very careful, again, because this is an as of right situation, we are supportive of some negotiated solution that ensures these 16 apartments can continue to be habitable.
Thank you. Marco?
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you're absolutely right. The last statement, we agree with you. Also, I have to acknowledge Adam, very smart. He's right. He's absolutely right. I'm very smart. I never thought that they can find a negotiation for the part of the air shaft. And the part that I would like to talk to you is this issue. I remember, I think there is a precedent in this kind of issue, but I don't remember where and nor the location, because I have an interaction with the plan examiners and DOE. And I think usually, I remember vaguely that he discussed this issue and was successful, I think. But you had to do a good research with that project. So DOE is fully aware of this problem. So yes, once the adjacent property bill as a right of development in the way that Adam described, we cannot stop. However, I think this is not the issue of zoning. This is not the issue of any other building code. I think, if I'm not wrong, this is about the multiple dwelling law. And I remember that I read a lot of this book, but always with a very specific target. And I think if you review carefully, I think they constantly mention what you are claiming, the air and ventilation. And they can explain, if you find somebody else, a professional, you have an architect, you have an attorney, they can read very careful and deep. This is a strong argument against DOB. Otherwise, you don't have argument against DOB, because DOB follow the zoning resolution, all the laws, and so it will approve. However, always DOB is not perfect. They are not perfect. The plan examiner, always there is something that you can figure it out if you do appropriately research. And if the multiple dwelling law said that you have to maintain that, now you have a case, and a strong case, because DOB has to first is mandated to first to comply with any state laws. So that is my recommendation, and that's what I strongly recommend, to move in that direction. And I'm sorry to hear that, but zoning, I don't think it's going to help you. A building code is not going to help you. And the only part is in that direction. And thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you, Marco.
Thank you. And next to Rita Popper.
I fully support Michelle saying you've got to go to the fire department, but I'd like to change that one word that she had in her resolution from comfort to health and safety. I think comfort, like who cares about anybody else's comfort, but the health and safety, to get the fire department in there and say, if there was a fire, can you save these people? So I'd like to support that and ask if Michelle will accept that change from comfort to health and safety.
Will you accept it, Michelle?
Yes, it's also terminology. We can decide on the final wording of the resolution. Now we're really talking about concept, but yes, Rita, I accept that. But I think, however, we can all, in addition to health and safety and all that, we could talk about the quiet and peaceful enjoyment of one's home. That is Elizabeth is saying no. I guess you feel that that comes under value. Value is certainly, I agree, never talk about that. Nobody is sympathetic to that. It's all about the health and safety. So whatever the committee feels would be the most helpful to the group and the most appropriate in terms of what our commentary should be, I'm for. I would just like to give them the support that they're asking for.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're really helping the church because it's, from what I hear, what they're proposing, the effect of it is extremely unchristian. And we may be redirecting, if we make this change, turning them back to the religion they're supposed to be supporting. We probably can't put that in the resolution.
Well, that's not our job this evening.
Okay, Judy?
Yes, I agree with what Marco and Rita and everybody has said. Michelle or Elizabeth or someone, could you please repeat the resolution as it is now? Because I think I might also have an addition.
Michelle?
Yeah, the resolution was that Community Board 8 supports the residents of 160 East 91st Street in their effort to, we'll now say, the health, to maintain the health and safety of their apartments. If you want to say as it exists today, if you want, whatever else, if you don't want to say that, fine. As simple as possible, just to say that we are supporting their efforts to maintain the health and safety of their apartments. That resolution would go to the various entities, including the council member, who then maybe will be able to help them and help them get in touch with emergency services, the fire department, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I would just like
Michelle, I'm sorry, just 1 second, just 1 second, Judy, I apologize. Michelle, I think Elizabeth also mentioned supporting negotiations. And I think
fine.
some aspect of, okay.
I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
I just wasn't giving them a method. Do you know what I mean? But if you want to give them a method, I have no objection to that.
Yeah, I think negotiations is good. I also think that when you talk about it, I think what was said before about air and lack of air and ventilation to the N and O lines would be affected, and these apartments would not be habitable. I think that we could put that in our resolution.
That's fine.
And I would also want to make sure Sharon and Anthony and Elizabeth, that this resolution doesn't just go to our standard elected people, that it goes to the fire department and all these various departments that we have mentioned. I think we have to tell that to the board office, because otherwise that isn't going to happen. I don't know, maybe you even want to write the resolution either to the building department and or to the fire department. That's up for discussion, but that's my suggestion for an addition to the resolution.
I just want to say that's all fine with me, Judy. I just want us, as we're writing this, I want to write it so that it will pass the full board. So
well, I don't think
keep
anything
that in
we've
mind.
said so far, it's still pretty general, and I don't think anything that was said so far would not pass the board. And after all, the board heard during the full board meeting all these people that came to us about this problem.
Agreed.
I mean, I would even be more specific, but that might be a problem, about saying at least 5 feet, but that might cause a problem. So I'm not saying that. That's
Agreed.
it. That's it for me.
Okay, Mrs. Brown?
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. I want to support everything that has been said, especially Michelle's resolution. But I also, we have to be very careful with our comments. And I also wish there was a way that we could include multiple dwellings, that we look at that before we present the final resolution. And I think the key to all of this is peaceful and enjoyment. Peaceful, habitable, and enjoyment of one's residence. Those are very, very important factors that needs to be addressed. But everyone's comments, from Rita to Adam, Judy, have been on point. And I think somehow when the resolution is written, that all of these things are factored into it. And thank you all.
Thank you. Valerie?
Thank you. I just have a question. Did Redeemer to come here tonight and speak?
Can you repeat your question, Valerie? I didn't hear you.
I didn't get it, yeah.
Did we invite Redeemer to come tonight and speak on their own behalf?
They were invited and said they would come, and 2 days later they said that they couldn't, the people couldn't come, and could they do it in February? We didn't put it off until February because the local residents pointed out that they're already building and it could become moot by February. So that's why we held it without them, but they certainly were invited, and we went ahead on their acceptance, and then they found they couldn't.
Okay. I mean, I just want to go back to what Adam started off with, which is, this is unfortunately, given the way the law is written, a dispute between two private parties. And the fact that 150 was enjoying light and air because the building next to it had a similar structure that gave them perhaps more than the law mandated, was a sort of a lucky accident for a number of years. And that's unfortunate, because in this, excuse me, in this instance, everyone can empathize and feel for people who are in this situation, especially those in the line where they're not going to have any window really. But this is what as of right means. This is a terrible consequence to light and air, but I mean, we're not really going to have any jurisdiction over this. And And I really think, the resolution, I think everybody's right, should appeal to the negotiation between the two buildings. But I think this is unfortunately, a cautionary tale about living in Manhattan and having lot line windows. These people are particularly suffering, but there's unfortunately no guarantee of light and air on lot line windows in most cases throughout New York City. And this is an unfortunate circumstance. I mean, I support the resolution in trying to get these two parties together. I'm not sure I really appreciate the commentary about this being a church in particular, because if this was just a developer, we would be having the same conversation, and they would be building whatever they wanted. So as of right means as of right for everyone, whether you're a religious institution or a for-profit developer. And again, just a cautionary tale about life in New York City and how you think you have a right to something that you don't, and somebody has a right to do something that you would think they wouldn't. And it's unfortunate. And I feel for the people on that block, and particularly that building. And I hope that you will be able to come to an amicable solution. And I think we should allow the church to come at a different meeting, and so that we can give the same message to them as we're giving to the people tonight. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth Rose.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So I drafted some language that I've put in the chat to Will, and I'll just read out. I will figure out all of the whereases, but language, be it resolved, Community Board 8 supports the efforts of the residents of 160 East 91st Street to have or obtain sufficient light and air to ensure the habitability of the apartments in the N and O lines, or the continued habitability in the apartments in the N and O lines, as well as safe egress in the event of fire or other emergency. We call upon the church to negotiate in good faith to identify a solution that meets these needs.
Okay. Peggy Price?
Yes, I'd like to call the question, please.
Marco seconds that at Hartzog as well.
I think we will probably have to work on this resolution after the meeting. So it's what we've agreed to. Michelle, are you happy with? Yes, Michelle?
Yeah. No, I'm happy. I would just like to say, I think where Elizabeth said we're calling upon the church to negotiate, I would rather say the two parties to negotiate, or be, so that we're not telling the church that they're completely in charge. Okay, Elizabeth agrees with that. I don't know if you want to add, because as I said, I wasn't looking to give them a method forward. So negotiations are fine. But if this goes to I don't think we need to mention the fire department and emergency services if we're saying that this resolution will go to the emergency services and the fire department. So to that extent, I think we can leave it out, but I would certainly call upon the community to 160 to make sure that you reach out to the fire department and all emergency services and make sure that the councilwoman joins you, facilitates that. So other than that, I'm fine with the resolution.
Okay, Peggy?
Yeah, I just want to point out that the question has been called and seconded, so we should be voting on it.
Thank you, Peggy.
Okey doke.
So if you're
would you
voting
like
no,
to? Yeah, Will,
okay.
please.
Yeah, okay. If you're voting no, I'm gonna actually clear all the feedback and mute the folks who are not board members right now. But if you would like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, just go to the reactions icon and press the raise hand button. This is only for board members right now. So as people raise their hand, I'm gonna unmute them so that they can explain their vote. Judy Schneider.
I vote yes only if it is understood that this resolution is going to go to the building department, the fire department, and every place else that we discussed. If it's not going to be sent to all the people involved in this situation, then my vote is no. So
I
are
see
we
folks
doing that?
nodding yes. So I
Yes,
think
yes, Judy.
Okay, then my vote is yes.
okay. Thanks, Judy. Sandrea, and then Lindsay after that.
Greetings all. I would have to name Redeemer is one of the churches that's serves with the Homes ISIS Coalition, which I'm a co-founder of. We feed the community monthly. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was your vote?
Abstaining. I said
Abstain. Thank you.
Hmm?
And just remember, as you vote, the only thing you should be saying is no, abstain, or not voting for cause, and then explain your reason for not voting for cause. Lindsay Cormack.
I would like to abstain.
Thank you, Lindsay. And so I'm just going to read all the names of the board members who are here, just so that we have it in the YouTube record. So we have Anthony, Elizabeth, and Sharon Pope Marshall. We have Adam Wald, Anjou, Ed Hartzog, Elizabeth Rose, John McClement, Judy Schneider, Leo Yu, public member, Lindsay Cormack, Lori Boris, Marco, Michelle, Mrs. Brown, Peggy, Rita, Sondrea, Valerie, and did I miss anyone? Please raise your hand if I missed you.
Peggy, did you say Peggy Price?
I did say Peggy, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Will. Okie doke, that's passed, and we'll work on getting the wording straight in the next few days. And now Sharon is going to take care of the next item.
Yes, thank you everybody for being here this evening. I'm sorry, I'm having some technical, okay, I have it. So our next item on the agenda is 419 East 91st Street, and it's the proposed safe havens zoning objections. And I would like to open this up first to the public. And if you could raise your hands if you're interested in speaking on this topic, I'll be happy to call on you.
Just a friendly reminder that if you want to talk about this, you can go to the reactions icon on your screen and press the raise hand button. If you're calling in from the phone, it's *6. You have Roxanne Ellings.
Thank you.
Good evening.
You're on, Roxanne.
Yes, good evening. I am a shareholder at 407 East 91st Street and part of the Yorkville Community Coalition on this. I believe there were some questions about the zoning issues. As I think you're aware, the New York City buildings did issue notice of objections, and I think there were some questions around that. So what I wanted to do was perhaps shed some light on that. Our attorneys back in January of 2022 wrote a letter to the commissioner of the Department of Buildings. raising several zoning violations. And that was based on their review of the plan submitted by 419 BR Partners LLC, the applicant, right? And other information makes clear that there are serious zoning, compliance, building code, health, and fire safety issues that have been neglected and that make it impossible for the project to be completed in compliance with the local law. First, the building plans improperly label the residential floors of the proposed shelter as UG5 hotel rooms in order to circumvent the prohibition on UG2 use groups in the general services C8-4 district in which the building is located. The approved plan for the building makes clear that the proposed shelter will be a rooming house and not a hotel. This distinction is critical because the zoning resolution specifies that a rooming house, is a type of residence that must be classified as a use 2 rather than a use 5, as a residence does not include hotels. Quote, ZR, that's ZR 12-10, defining a rooming house as a type of residence and stating that residents do not include transient accommodations such as transient hotels, motels, or tourist cabins or trailer camps. Likewise, the multiple dwelling law defines a rooming house to be a multiple dwelling other than a hotel, having less than 30 sleeping rooms and in which persons either individually or as families are housed for hire or otherwise with or without meals. And that's MDL section 413. Thus, the applicant's proposed rooming house cannot be classified as a use 5 hotel. Rather, as a residence, it must be classified as a UG2 use. That's according to ZR 22-11, 12, stating that use group consists of single-family detached residences and that use group 2 consists of all other types of residences. This is not a permissible use group in this district. See ZR 32, prohibiting residential UG2 buildings in a general services C8-4 district. And therefore, any approvals must be revoked. Second, the applicant cannot cure the zoning issues identified in the prior paragraph by reclassifying the building as a hotel because it clearly will not be a hotel. In addition to the common sense reality that shelter is not a hotel, this building also does not comply with the requirements for a hotel. According to the building plans, the applicant intends to house approximately 90 people in approximately 20 barrack-style rooms. But the MDL is clear that a hotel must have 30 or more sleeping rooms. That's according to MDL section 4 in parentheses 12. See also Housing Maintenance Code, HMC 27-2004 A12. Any multiple dwelling with fewer than 30 rooms must be classified as either a rooming house or a lodging house, as the applicant has sought to do here, neither of which is a permissible use in a general services C8-4 district. That's according to MDL sections 4-14, ZR 32-00. The Department of Buildings apparently actually recognized this inherent flaw when on October 5th, 2021, it denied the latest proposed amendment to the application, which the applicant sought to classify the building as a lodging house. But again, the problem remains that a lodging house is not a hotel. CMDL 414 and HMC 27-2004, paren 8, paren 18, and therefore is not allowed in this district. Third, the applicant proposes to create new congregate living rooming units in the building, but HMC section 27-2077 flatly bans such rooming unit conversions except in narrow circumstances not present here. Nor should any such conversion be approved to the extent the applicant argues that it would be permitted with the commissioner's consent for all the reasons set forth herein. Among other insurmountable problems, the proposed barrack-style rooms will house large numbers of unrelated men. The proposed congregate living units are not permitted in this location. The building fails to meet the requirements of a hotel, and the proposed use is not permissible use in this zoning district. Fourth, the plans do not meet the safety requirements for the residential use the applicant clearly anticipates. For example, the required depth of the rear yard for a residential use, such as a rooming house, is 30 feet. But the current plans for the building code for the building do not include a 30-foot yard. See zoning regulations 23-47. The rear yard requirements are designed to ensure light and air between the structures, critical health requirement, and fire safety precaution that serves to prevent fires from spreading to neighboring buildings. Similarly, the proposed building windows fall short of zoning rules that require windows to be a minimum of 30 feet away from the rear lot line. See ZR 23-861. Indeed, the building plans show that the windows for the proposed living rooms on floors 2 through 8 will be only 20 feet away from the rear lot line. Like the related rear lot requirements, these window requirements exist to ensure the living rooms have an adequate amount of light and ventilation to ensure the safety of those who live in them. Consequently, these rooms cannot be used as bedrooms or living rooms for this independent reason. See Building Code BC 1203.4.3. Fifth, the proposed building fails to meet the city's basic requirements for handicapped accessibility. In fact, in violation of BC 1107.6.1.2, all but 4 of the bedrooms in the building are too small to even be adaptable into handicap bathrooms, such that none could accommodate future installation of handicap compliant fixtures if the need arose. Even the 2 feet by 60-inch wide doors of the building's bathrooms fail to meet handicap accessibility standards, requiring bathroom doors to be at least 2 feet, 10 inches wide. And then 6, the applicant failed to provide sufficient information to verify the building plans complied with the 2020 NYC Energy Conservation Code. And then finally, the extra precautions needs to be taken to ensure the building meets all code and safety requirements the city has set forth for this neighborhood, especially considering the number of children and young women who frequent the block. But those are the main zoning and safety violations that were raised. It's also my understanding is that the rear lot line, the 30-foot, that my understanding from our attorneys is that that's never been approved for a building that is a use 2 building.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other non-board members? I think Devin.
And also Elaine is here, Sharon.
I'd like Daryl Vernon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep thinking that Elaine is on the board. Thank you. If Devin, can you just give me 1 second? Elaine, did you want to? Elaine, your hand is up.
I want to speak, but I would defer to Devin and Daryl, and then I'd like to be called on.
Okay, you got it. Devin?
I'm Devin Fredericks. I'm an owner of the building adjacent to 419 East 91st Street. I'm going to let Daryl Vernon speak about the court case we have about the issues with the safety of our building during the construction process. But I would like to let everyone here know that none of the members of the Yorkville Community Coalition, or I think of anyone in this neighborhood, is against. I mean, we all know we have a part to play in housing people in our community, and we are not against having a safe haven or supportive housing in our community. We live a block away from this. There's an excellent program run by Women in Need that would be a very good neighbor. Our objection is that since Goddard Riverside has left this project, we don't know who is going to run it. We don't know what kind of project it's going to be. And we'd like to feel that it's something appropriate to the neighborhood, as we did when Goddard Riverside was going to be the manager of the project. The developer has not met with us, will not meet with us, is very uncommunicative. But I mean, for your purposes, I'd like Darrell Vernon to address the legal issues with the construction site.
Thank you, Devin. So everyone can hear me?
Yes.
So I am a lawyer representing Devon and Eli in their capacity as owners of the very next door building. And what Devon says, of course, is absolutely right. We've made clear that there's been no objection to providing needed social services in the neighborhood at all. But rather, we're dealing with a developer that has been very difficult to deal with and has sued Eli and Devon 3 times, lost 2 of those cases, getting them dismissed. The first one was a case where the developer sought access to get on Devon and Eli's property to inspect, and a lot needs to be done to protect their property because, in short, the developer is going to dig down way below Devon and Eli's building, which is always a very risky proposition. In the first case, it's an access case, much like the 881 case mentioned in the previous issues that were raised. And these 881 cases, number one, are almost always resolved because people agree on reasonable access and protections. That couldn't be done with this developer. And then when a lawsuit is brought, they're hardly ever dismissed because the court can come to some terms. The first lawsuit, the court found, Justice Saunders, that the developer's claim of needing access and not getting it was belied by their inability to negotiate and also by not giving plans that were at all clear. And the developers claimed that all they were going to do was slightly inconvenience Devon and Eli's building was just wrong. That case got thrown out. The developer then sued Devon and Eli in a separate claim, not an 881, but a claim just claiming that because they were delayed, it was all their fault and they should somehow be liable under various theories of tort or negligence or malicious prosecution. That case was dismissed also. The third case, another 881, was granted, as they often are, with the understanding that they must do this safely. However, you'll see from the court's decision, he really was persuaded by the fact that this developer convinced the court that they were going to provide homeless services, essential to the community, build a homeless shelter. And as you just heard, it's not at all clear they can do that. And one of the better places in the community, if not the world, Goddard, who would be doing this, dropped out, which is not a good sign for what this developer really plans on doing. So in short, I just wanted to let everyone know that what this developer has been doing, we believe is highly inappropriate. The plans they have of not providing sufficient protection, we believe are going to be very problematic. All the court left us with was the ability to run back to court as soon as we see cracks in the building or any other serious problems that could cause serious damage, and also go back for the damages that will be done to the building because Eli and Devon grow crops on the top of the building. So this will impact in that regard. So I really just want to make it clear that this developer has been aggressive, difficult, and we don't see that they're pursuing some great social benefit for the community, but rather as a developer looking to build a building without any clear plan at this point, even though the court thinks they do. That's all.
Thank you very much for that. I think that we have
We have
Daryl.
Elaine.
No, Elaine. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to give some background on this, and I appreciate the presentations that have gone on. Prior to about 2019, 2018, it was pre-pandemic, this developer came in and stated that they were going to do, quote unquote, a safe haven. Well, a safe haven does not go with the zoning requirements. The DOB regulations are that the residence must be 30 days or less. There was a claim that this is an as of right facility. It is not an as of right. And until this day, and I haven't heard anything since, and I don't know if the developer is there, have they shown that they are as of right? There are other spots in our neighborhood that are as of right where a facility for the homeless could be built, but it is not at this site. The issue with the Department of Homeless Services and Goddard was that Goddard was committed to, quote, the safe haven model, which could have somebody living there longer than the 30 days. I believe, I don't have proof, that DHS realized that this was not an appropriate site and they changed the model. So we need to know if, first of all, the zoning does not allow for a long-term facility. Is DHS going to participate and how? And there is no nonprofit, which DHS needs to run this. What is this developer doing? I know that when this started out, the developer was clear that after 10 years, they'd make it into a hotel. I don't know if the developer is to come, but this is not an as of right building for what the original plan was. And since we don't know if there's any commitment from DHS, which I doubt that the city would do because the city is hesitant to go into an agreement where they've got to go against or fight different elements to have a location. They prefer to move into where it's acceptable. So I would suggest that there needs to be some discussion with DHS as to what is going on. This developer is also known, they started a procedure in Queens in an area wanting to rezone out there to do a similar project. I do not believe that that has moved forward. So here it is, we have somebody who's coming in who wants to do, I'm not sure what their purpose is, but they cannot build this thinking they're going to then have some kind of facility for people who have homeless needs. It's not permissible there. The zoning doesn't allow it. We have plenty of spots, and interestingly enough, and sadly enough, after all these years, the Postgraduate Center that ran a facility on 86 between 2nd and 3rd is going to demolish that building that provided services for the homeless and mentally ill. We've been unable to find out what's going on that site, but it's a sad commentary. Here it is, we have something being demolished, and then we have something on 91st Street for which we have no idea what the development plans are. And let me just say on those plans, DHS had serious issues because the plans included balconies, et cetera, which were safety hazards for their population. So I just want to say that the zoning does not permit what was the original goal. And from what you're saying, it's still not a permissible use. And they can find another space. This is a developer who long-term hope to use the funding from the city to finance their building and then ultimately turn it over for a for-profit hotel. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm having some audio issues. Is it possible that you could clarify again your comments regarding why Goddard pulled out of the project?
I could tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
I could tell you that Goddard, the safe haven model is something that Goddard believes in. Their favorite model is supportive housing. And when the developer, because of the zoning issues, couldn't create either supportive housing or safe haven model, Goddard declined to be involved. They now run the Stanley Wise houses a little bit north of here, of this site, and so they would have been a very good operator for this site. They're in the neighborhood anyway. I'm hoping that maybe there'll be some way for Goddard to get the building back from the developer and do a more appropriate program in it, but at the moment that doesn't seem possible.
So just to clarify, you're suggesting that Goddard pulled out because of their commitment to a model of safe housing, transitional housing that's longer than 30 days?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, supported housing is permanent housing. Their problem with the safe haven model is it's supposed to be transitional, but since there isn't enough housing for these people to move on to, it never is transitional. So you go into a safe haven and you end up staying forever. So, but that was a model they could work with because of the way this is a different, once it was clear that neither of these models were going to be able to be in this building, they withdrew. And I spent a lot of time visiting their programs on the West Side. They run great programs. I mean, I would have been happy to
Yes,
have.
they do. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have any other non-board members who wish to speak. And it looks like Marco Tabayo is next. Would you? Thank you, Will.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. I would like to see, I did a deep study on the DOV objections. So I'm not going to analyze anything outside. So to make easier, because I saw Roxanne, she mentioned so many regulations that is very hard to follow her. So what I did is I did a quick presentation so everybody can read it and can follow what I'm referring to. Can I share my screen with everybody, Sharon?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, anybody can see me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I was saying that my goal is just only to discuss the letter of intent to revoke the approval by DOV. This was an audit on February 28, 2022. Okay, so these are some zoning analysis on objection raised by DOV. I don't know who requested to audit this application. I think it was Roseanne. That's what I hear. These objections were obtained by thanks to Elizabeth Ashby, and the applicant answered this objection January 9, 2023 for the third time, and the status is still in the process to revoke the application. So that means that all the communication between the applicant and DOV is still not clear. So DOV is still not accepting anything at all. So let me put in context this general condition. The developer is 419 BR Partners LLC. The person who's signing this application is Daniel Rabinovich, and the tenant is Safe Haven, and this is an NGO. The client is a homeless person. The lot area is 2,500 square feet. The existing gross area is 4,500 square feet approximately. And there is this application alteration 140993398. The zoning district is C8-4. So what are the discussion of applicable zoning in this case? Zoning resolution 33-122, commercial buildings in all other commercial districts. That's I put in red is C8. In all districts indicated, the maximum floor area for the zoning lot containing only commercial uses shall not exceed the floor area ratio set for on the following table. CA4 is 5, the floor area ratio. Keep in mind these numbers because they later make sense. Then the allowable use. As per zoning resolution 3200, general provisions, the general service C8, the only service allowable is from group 5 and up. I marked the group 5 because the group 5, zoning resolution 3214, use group 5 consists of hotel used primarily for transient occupancy, transient accommodation, hotel and transient. This is subject to the provisions of the hotels. The next one is about the Appendix A. The rooming houses not allowed in C8-4. In the Appendix A, you see it on the left side, boarding or rooming houses is only allowable in group 2. So therefore, the groups only permissible in this lot is R6 to R10, C1 through C6, no C8. Now, at the intro 104/2013, they define what exactly is a hotel. They established that this is a Class B building, and it cannot be occupied more than 29 days in a 12-month period. Zoning resolution 5230, change of non-conforming use. 5232, land with minor improvements. In all residence and commercial districts, a non-conforming use of land with minor improvements may be changed only to a conforming use. So the conclusion is next. Zoning resolution 33-122, the floor area is 5. Therefore, they have 12,500 square feet maximum. Cannot go beyond that. Zoning resolution 3200, it allows the group 5 in this, which is hotels. What is not permitted in this, is not permitted in this lot is the Appendix X8, is a rooming house, no allowance in C8-4. Intro 104/2013, Class B building, and it has to be qualified and no more than 20 days. And zoning resolution 5232, land with minor improvements may change to a conforming use. So the proposal basically, what it is right now is to provide to homeless persons the following services: social service, obtain entitlements, and house them into permanent housing, all of these in a challenge period of 29 days. Talking about the social service, I think Elaine is the expert. I'm not going to comment on that, but 29 days to prepare a homeless person, I think is hard, but let's go assume that they can do it in a week. Obtain the entitlements from the government is no easy task either. So let's assume that still in 1 week they can do that. But to house into a permanent housing, first of all, we have a large short of housing, almost impossible to find right away an apartment. 1 and 2, the payments of the entitlements from the city, basically they pay lower than the market rate. So basically it becomes something impossible to house these people in permanent housing in 29 days. So
Okay, thank you.
the applicant has,
If you could sum up, Marco, that'd be great.
I'm going to determine in that direction. I'm sorry. So the applicant had two choices: either to file an alteration 1, which is an enlargement, or leverage the grandfather status, or a new building, new rules apply. Now, I'm going to address the violations. That's what it is. And the violation is basically what I already described. The objection to the quote AC 28-101.4.5 said the application increases existing floor surface area of a prior code building by more than 110%. I changed the color because also this objection said BPP and SD1 and 2 applications are required. So there are two parts in this objection that the plan examiner shouldn't put together, because the developer can manipulate this idea, what indeed they did. So we have a floor area of 4,500, which is the 100% of what is existing. And as per administrative code, it can increase in 110. But they propose 16,000 square feet, so it's 306. Therefore, is unable to resolve this resolution. They have to withdraw and file as a new building. Indeed, the applicant addressed this issue this month on the 9th, and said both BPP and S1 and S2 are provided, which basically doesn't answer the question number 2. So the administrative change is right there. And let's go to the objection number 3. Quote, proposed work is not a rooming house, as the subject building is not a converted dwelling unit. So the issue right here is because they have a CO with mixed use, industrial in the first floor and 2 apartments. But if that is the case, it's just only a 2-family private dwelling. It's not a multiple dwelling unit. And that is why the plan examiner asked the applicant to review record from HPD. And HPD doesn't have no record because this is qualified as a commercial use or classified as a B building. So then basically the applicant, the plan examiner recommend to read the multiple dwelling law with the section 171A that said it's unlawful to increase in building height in a multiple dwelling. So let me move this one. This is basically what it said, the law. And this is about the multiple dwelling too. So now it's coming again, the issue of this transient house. It shouldn't have no more than 29 days in a period of 12 months. Now, the objection number 5, I disagree with the plan examiner because I think the issue is different. They ask for, according with the regulation, which is on the right side, this is a copy from the city planning. Remember, city planning, they create, but they cannot interpret or enforce their own regulations. But it's right there, the graphic speaks by itself for A1, and that is valid for all C8 districts. And this is right here. So all the districts, in this case, the building, let me go to this part. The building on the left, that is more or less what the Department of City Planning described. The developer, they put on the lot line the setback, which is wrong. And I think I'm very close to finish. Now, the objection 6. The objection 6, I think, let me read what I said, the objection 6. Where floor area in a building is shared by multiple uses, the floor area for such a shared portion shall be attributed to each group proportionally based on the percentage each use occupies of the total floor area of the zoning, less any shared floor area. So right here is the issue. We have a lot area for 2,500 times 5. The maximum floor area they can have is 12,500 square feet maximum. Cannot go 1 square feet more. Then the proposed project, they say the community facility is 4,200, and then the commercial is 12,000 square feet with a total of 16,200 square feet. So they have in excess 3,638 square feet. So on the applicant, they said they're correcting, saying they update the S1 and S2, which basically is just only the zoning analysis, but that is not the zoning analysis. It has to remove all this square footage from the building, not only from the zoning. It has to be completely. I think right here is what the applicant, they present to us, is right here, the numbers. And finally, let me reach the conclusion. The conclusion is next. In the AL1 form presented for file on DOB on 1923, answering the objections, and the status of this application remained with intent to revoke. So some of the applicant answer were not accepted so far. Therefore, this building application alteration 1 shall be withdrawn. File a new development as a new building, comply with all zoning and building regulations, or look for another land compatible use for this service. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to circle back and thank Roxanne for her presentation as well. Very much appreciated, Marco. I believe that Elizabeth Rose is next.
Thank you, Sharon. I feel like what we have here is a tragedy. We had a well-respected provider who wanted to come in and provide incredibly needed services in our community. And I found the comment of, we hope that that perhaps Goddard Riverside can get this building back from the developer so that they can do this model. Well, that's a somewhat disingenuous statement, because it's the model that you're claiming is counter to the zoning. It's not whether it's the developer initiating it or whether Goddard Riverside initiated it. And I think if this community board is really serious about wanting to help address our housing crisis as a city, to specifically help address the street homelessness that is rampant in our community, we need to, in some ways, put our money where our mouth is. And I would like to suggest that this zoning and development committee take back up the idea that we should be proposing to the city to upzone all of the remaining commercially zoned lots on the Upper East Side to enable greater residential use. Because if we are not part of the solution of creating more housing in this community, and all we do is fight the development of housing and homeless services on fairly narrow lines, these problems will never go away. And we have to be leaders and part of the solution.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Billy, would you want to unmute Billy?
Billy, just look for the prompt on your screen. Billy, we're not getting.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. And sorry for being off
Yes.
camera here. I want to begin just by echoing everything Elizabeth Rose just said. She took a lot of the words right out of my mouth. And I guess where I'll start, and I do appreciate our neighbors for speaking out and for their concerns, but I heard something earlier that was puzzling to me, which was something along the lines of being comfortable with the proposal before Goddard pulled out of it. And I know we all adore, Goddard and the amazing work they do, and I was so disappointed to hear that they pulled out of this. But my recollection is that there was some opposition, mostly from neighbors on this block, I believe from Eli's as well. Opposition to the proposal, the Goddard Safe Haven proposal. So if I'm misremembering that, I hope that would be corrected. The second thing I would say is, and this is going to go back to what Elizabeth was arguing. Yes, let's revisit zoning throughout Community District 8. I really appreciated what I believe it was Ms. Fredericks said about, look, we're not opposed to housing our unhoused neighbors. So let's not be opposed to it. Let's talk about what changes we need to make to the zoning code in order to enable whether it's this project or others to go forward. I am concerned that we're departing from the safe haven model because it was, in many respects, a very well-regarded, proven model, not without its flaws, but one that addressed a huge problem in the city, which is chronic homelessness. The fact that, kind of to Marco's presentation, it is not easy to address homelessness in fewer than 30 days. And we have a lot of neighbors who need something a little longer term, more stable, with support on site in order to get on their feet again. And we know housing is in so many ways the key to getting your health, to getting job security, to getting familial security. So we know how important it is. So let's talk about where we can do this in the district, whether it requires changing zoning, whether it requires addressing the building code and building proposals. Let's work with developers on it. And maybe I'll just conclude on this. I live on 86th Street, between 2nd and 3rd, and down the block between 2nd and 1st, you have the Doe Fund that has housing for, I believe, about 27 men who formerly experienced homelessness. If you walk past it, you wouldn't know it's there. It is a model that works. It's extremely successful. Let's go after the models that work and let's put them throughout our community district, because we need it. The homelessness crisis is not abating anytime soon. And as Ms. Fredericks and others said, we all need to do our part. So I hope we'll do our part, starting with this block and this site specifically. What changes to zoning can we make? Let's all come to the table productively, proactively, try to address the challenges rather than saying, no, not in my backyard, no, not on my block. And not that that's what the speakers tonight are saying, but I know that's what it's come so easy to many of us. Finding objections to a specific proposal that happens to be nearby, but saying, oh, but I'll support something else. I'll support it if it's a block away, 10 blocks away, a different neighborhood, a different borough. We can't do that. We have to support the housing in our backyard. And I hope that starts with this proposal. So I'll stop there and just again echo what Elizabeth Rose so eloquently said, and hope we can move forward productively as a board and as a community on this.
Thank you very much, Billy. Anthony?
Thank you, Sharon. Just a couple of things. If we go back historically to when this issue came up the first time, the community board as a whole voted to support a safe haven, voted to support a safe haven project on this location without this committee having looked at the ramifications of the particular location as to a number of issues, not the least of which under the umbrella of the things that we care about in this room, zoning. And the fact that I think that we can all agree that a hotel is not a rooming house, and that we are not, in fact, allowed to think it's a good idea to have a residence in a district that doesn't allow it. Having said that, I agree completely with what Elizabeth said about taking a look at the zoning. It's something that Adam brought up last year sometime, and I think that we are planning on looking at it again next month and beginning to and hopefully beginning to try and fill out a proposal. It'll take a lot of work on our part to even get it to the point where we can talk about it outside of ourselves. But the idea of looking at rezoning these strange commercial districts, mid-block commercial districts in the 90s. I guess they're in the 90s. And there were a couple of others somewhere else further down that I think that that's something that's important and that I certainly would hope that we can take up starting next month. I think that we're looking at two different issues here. One issue has to do with the safety of neighboring buildings, and the other, which is not really in our purview, and that really is the dispute between neighbors. And the other is, and to sort of, Daryl pointed out that the foundations for the new building, which is a new building, the foundations for the new building are much lower than the Zabar's building next door. And obviously, if that work is properly designed, it should not be an issue. It happens all the time. It's building in the city. But there is the other issue, which is the one that this committee should be looking at, is the suitability of this particular project in this particular location from a standpoint of zoning and also the building code and the demands of this kind of supportive housing. If the program is to remain a safe haven, I read somewhere, and I think I've shared it before, the average stay in New York City safe havens is about 2 years, which is about 24 times what a hotel is allowed to consider. And so either we change the zoning, or we look at a different way to create homeless services in this location. And I think that I don't think an emergency shelter is a terrible idea in of itself, and something that again, it's not what we're supposed to talk about, and we have been cautioned we're not supposed to talk about it. But this is a zoning issue. As a zoning issue, this project fails from a zoning standpoint. It doesn't mean it's not a good idea. It just means that this particular, not every site is appropriate for every kind of building. And I don't know how we can, I don't know how we can get beyond that. I certainly don't know how we can get beyond that this evening. But I just wanted to point out that that's always been the objection, never to the program, never to the intent of trying to reduce homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Michelle?
Thanks, Sharon. I just wanted to thank Marco. I just wanted to commend him on that presentation. That took a lot of work. It certainly was clear. It was a terrific presentation, and it was a tremendous effort. So I just wanted to thank him for that.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Michelle. Valerie?
So I have a question for the chairs. Where are we going with this?
Well,
I mean, are we trying to, you know, the community board has expressed an interest in, and rightly so, and I think we've heard that tonight from, you know, very eloquently from Elizabeth and Billy, that we want to have the ability to offer these services in the community. So where are we going? Are we, is there a proposal here?
So yeah, so I think that there are two separate issues, and I want to just jump in and say that I also agree with Billy as well as with Elizabeth. I think it's very critical that we start saying yes to some things based on their appropriateness, obviously. And so that's something that we're going to look at next month. in particular with Adam Wald, who's a community board member and also on the zoning committee. He has a proposal actually just to do just that. And so so we'll have the opportunity next month in February to take a look at where we might consider making some zoning recommendations. And so circling back to what I think that you're going to say is, especially with the second issue being laid over for next month, if you will. So the issue before us now is, what do we do now? What do we do in the meantime? What are our options and choices with respect to this?
Well, I just want to just say,
and Valerie.
Well, I just want to go back because I'm definitely not the zoning expert. One of the reasons I come to these meetings is to learn more about it. But I think what we're really saying is that this program was never appropriate for this site from a zoning perspective from the very beginning. And if I recall, the committee took a lot of heat when it said it wasn't. But it turned out that the Department of Buildings has actually confirmed that this committee was correct. Am I understanding that appropriately?
Yes, you are.
So I just want to give a shout out to the zoning committee for actually getting it right in the first instance, that our heart and what we wanted to do was in the right place, but that the application was misplaced from the very beginning. So I just want to take a shout out to all the people on the committee, because I think that got lost in our zealousness and wanting to do this. So all that being said, it sounds to me like this site is, from a zoning perspective, at least for now, is no good. And so we're going to move on, if I understand correctly, next month to Adam's proposal for trying to do what this community wants to do, which is offer housing to people who need it in our community. Does that sort of get where we are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sandrea? Thank you, Valerie.
Greetings again, all. Yes, it's unfortunate that the model was changed last year. When I received notice last year, I was actually devastated, disheartened. I sat on the East 91st Street community stakeholder meetings for well over a year, and I advocated for the safety of occupants, as several people was concerned with the safety of only the community, it didn't make any sense to me. Homelessness is solvable. As a community of people, we all should be pushing our legislators to eradicate homelessness. The crisis is not decreasing. It has exacerbated through the years. So what can we do? Because the people that would have been at the safe haven were actually people that were out on the streets in our community. People that, people have dropped money or fed them or bought them bedding, to be out there. And now we have a new directive in the city that actually, take people off the streets, unfortunately, and put them in hospitals and stuff like that if they feel there's some mental illness. So they're even more vulnerable, in a more vulnerable state now. Not just that the winter is here, but the new directive. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandrea. And that's really a fantastic quote. Homelessness is solvable, including housing. Housing and the lack of housing are certainly issues that are solvable. It just really is the drive necessary to make sure that we're turning over every stone to make sure that it's possible to have the number of housing units that we need in this city. And also that we're starting with Community Board aid. Rita?
I'd like to also thank Marco. I thought that was an incredible presentation. And I'd like to suggest that the Housing Committee be part of the next meeting or joint meeting. As you all know, that I've spent the last 15 years knocking my head against the wall for affordable housing. I still believe it's something that can be done. There is affordable housing right now on the northeast corner of 92nd Street. They have not, you don't even know that they're there. The people who were in the WIN program were people who were in apartments, but could not stay there, and they had children, and they were women. They moved into incredible housing and are an excellent neighbor. So I know that developers want to make a profit, and I have no bone with that. But I also know how hard it is to get a place to live. So it's up to the chairs, but I'd like you to consider having the Housing Committee part of that. Thank you. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you, Rita.
This might be the best moment for that, for this. We are the answer is yes, and depending on how we organize our agenda over the next couple of months, there is a potential monkey wrench, a good one or bad one, depending on your viewpoint. MSK, as they announced at not the January but December meeting, MSK is planning a new hospital building on the site of their current, they have a current between 67th and 68th, right on York, they have a residence that they would like to replace with a hospital, and they have hinted, no, they don't, not that site. That's the site. Okay. Yeah. Good idea, bad idea. That's another. Adam and I are having a conversation. Anyway. They would like to come to us, to this committee, to present their scheme when they have a real scheme. I had a little meeting with them. I don't know. I think it was in December, but might not have been. Yeah, it was December. It will be a very big building, and it will take a lot of work to have a conversation about it. But the point is that their ability to, or their willingness to come and see us might preempt our meeting next month. That's all. It's not that there is no desire to have. It's not that we don't want to have a co-meeting with housing. It's just that this may jump in front of it.
Never.
And we'll know better. We'll know better later. I think we can move on to the next item, unless somebody, yes, which would be maybe Elizabeth could take this one, which is a what's the right word? A review of where we stand with our special zoning district application.
Yeah, and I have bad news for you. And Anthony will probably start crying when I tell you. But we had a meeting with the department, representatives of the Department of City Planning, not the City Planning Commission, and as you know, we have one proposal for two special districts, the Yorkville and Lenox Hill special districts, because the first, second, third, and York are unprotected avenues, unlike the rest of the whole Upper East Side, and that's why we've been losing an enormous amount of affordable housing with the tenements going and getting buildings bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger that really have destroyed the scale or are destroying the scale and character of the community. And we have these special districts that would protect the tenements, can't take them down. And that protects not only the affordable housing in it, but I think that protecting the existing is even better because you save people's houses. That if you build a new one somewhere else, that's very nice. Maybe they didn't want to move to the Bronx. We have a height limit of 210 feet, which is the prevailing height limit on the Upper East Side for all the other avenues and the broad side street, crosstown streets, with the exception of Lexington, which is lower because it's narrower. So 210 is it. And we're defend local retail and service stores. They say they don't support it and won't work on it. We're now trying to work around that one because we aren't even 100% certain that the department, which is the staff, not the commission who makes the decisions, can decide that they won't do that. But that they don't accept what we want, which all the community wants, the elected officials want, we want. We feel it represents what's really needed for just the four unprotected avenues. They've decided that they won't move forward. We will move forward and try to get this going because it is so badly needed. But that's the bad news. And what we will be thinking about is working. I just got a thing from the borough president's office. I asked for their help. I'm sure that we will get help around the way, but that's where we are now, and we haven't pursued. We put on hold paying the planner because of this reason. But anyway, that's where we are, and it was a very irritating meeting because they didn't even make the effort to give good excuses for what they were doing. So that Anthony, do you have more bad news too?
No, same bad news. I think that Elizabeth has really summarized it well. It was evident that the staff has no interest in our proposal and no interest in doing anything to ameliorate the as of right lawlessness of the district, and whether or not there are others who will care about it more, or whether we all have to kind of wait and hope that a future that a future city administration will think differently is just, I mean, it's sort of where we are. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think that's really about it. I guess we can call on, there are four, well, let's call on Elaine first, who is obviously a member of the public, unfortunately.
Thank you. This is, I'm not usually at a loss for words, but I think this is a disgusting, terrible role that the staff has done. Prior to the pandemic, I'm going to say 2018, 2017, we met with city planning staff, the Manhattan commissioner, and every representative of an elected official in our community, including then the borough president. And the agreement was to move forward. They had rejected an application from a civic group, which we were well aware of, but they were willing to work with us. So it seems to me that you have a change in administration that is not willing to understand our needs, and for some reason is following a line of thought that says that our community is not entitled to have a livable community. And this is not the first time. So I will strongly suggest we continue to move forward. And I know as the head of a local civic group, we will move on this and take leadership, that we get what we are asking for, which is a habitable community. We are the most densely populated community in the city. Where
in the
would
country.
you? In the country.
In the country.
In the country. So should we put buildings, and I have suggested this, we build over the FDR. The hospitals did it. Why don't we put some housing there, right? Go all the way down, cover it all. But this is ludicrous. And my understanding, because I did look at it, is the staff does not have the authority to do what they just did to you and to us as a community. So I will be working with a number of civic groups, and we will take this on with the community board because we need the 210. And if anybody doesn't want to join us on it, well, then you don't understand, having been, as I was, am born and raised here, and changes. We see it left and right. And my understanding also is the city said to us, city planning, oh, but you have these tall buildings already. And I said, but we got them because you did a POPs, which has not really worked out that well. That's where those number of buildings came up that are taller. And now, of course, with the improvements in engineering and the ability to build, we want to go into the sky. We want to go in the clouds. So I will work with you all on this. And I'm sure every civic group that's in the neighborhood will. We want a livable community. We don't have space. And anything that's torn down, as you see, gets built so high with no affordable housing. I'm not going to get into how many of the corners in our community now are been demolished, including now what this so-called church Redeemer wants to do. How dare they want to do this on a side street? And I'd like to know who's backing that church. But thank you very much for listening to me. I'm sorry, I am not stupid, as usual.
Okay, we have Michelle, Peggy, Valerie, and Elizabeth Rose.
Thanks, Anthony. First of all, I just want to throw out there that there is that organization. It's called Building for Human Scale. They were originated downtown in Tribeca, I think. So it would probably be good to look at what they're doing as well. as we gather the thoughts of all the various civic groups. The other thing is informationally, how did this happen? I mean, how many members are there of the staff? Why was there a meeting of the staff? This is a new staff. Does Dan Garodnick, who's the head of both the office and the commission, does he know anything about that? Well, I know he knows about it, but I mean, does this reflect his opinion? Is this where this is coming from? Another question is, does this declare mute what Friends wants to do? They have a proposed height limit. It's taller than ours, but they have a proposal. I believe Civitas has a proposal as well. Does this declare, or an attempt to declare, all of these proposals null and void? That's one thing. And if the staff has no authority to stop the application from going forward, then what was the point of them coming up with this recommendation? And if we're not obliged to pay attention to it, then, and how influential are they with Dan Garodnick and the commissioners? I mean, I'm asking 1,000 questions because I don't know the answers. You know, what do we do? If we're not going to back down, we still need to come back to that basic effort of paying tuck. Now, the last 3 meetings that we're going to give an update on that were canceled. The budget committee and the last zoning committee, the last 2 zoning committees. So Russell gave us quite a strong assurance that his conversation with Tuck was going to, you know, ameliorate the issues that some had with Tuck. We all took him at his word. So if we're going to go forward, number 1 is, are we paying Tuck? And number 2 is, where do all these people fit in? And who was at that staff meeting? And why did we have a meeting with the staff? Can anybody answer that? Well, can anybody answer any of the questions that I raised at this moment?
Sure,
Michelle?
sure, Michelle. They're valid questions. First of all, in meeting with the staff, that is part of the pre-application process. So the community board submitted a PAS, as you know, and this was before I joined as a committee co-chair. And what happened, if my memory serves me correctly, is that there was an initial meeting with the staff, and after that initial meeting with the staff, they took some time to review the application, and they determined that they were not going to advance the application. And that is the language that they used at the meeting, that the application would not be advanced.
Can I just ask you, Sharon, though, when you had if that's part of the, just let me understand, that's why I'm stopping you. If that's part of the process, was Tuck at that meeting? Were we at the point? Are we that far along? In other words, where does that meeting come in our process? Does that mean we're further along?
So Tuck was not
there.
Yes, Tuck was not at. Well, first of all, let me. My understanding is that the Department of City Planning reached out to Community Board A. My understanding was that they wanted to hear feedback from us regarding the application.
Okay.
And during that meeting, I was at the meeting, Elizabeth was at the meeting, and Anthony was at the meeting. And so the first 45 minutes of the meeting was focused on Anthony and Elizabeth discussing the merits of the application. At about the 45-minute mark, it was the Department of City, the representative from City Planning essentially thanked Elizabeth and Anthony and the community board for submitting the pre-application statement, but that the pre-application statement would not be advanced. That was not learned until after approximately 45 minutes. And we, I think that everyone was surprised.
It's interesting. It sounds like they didn't even take. It sounds like they didn't even take the time to confer. In other words, they listened to you, and then they.
Oh, Elizabeth, they did. I'm sorry, Michelle. They did have the application, and also there was. Anthony, was there a meeting with Department of City Planning at the Department of City Planning after the
there was a meeting. Let me just sort of try and clarify the timeline. Let me try and clarify the timeline if I can. Before the application was formally submitted, this would be before the pandemic, in fact. There was a meeting at City Planning. I was not present. I think Elizabeth, Elaine, and Alida were there, and City Planning said that they were concerned about the potential of a height limit to limit affordable housing, possible affordable housing. That was the sort of takeaway, that they were dubious, and their principal reason for being dubious. I can be wrong, but let me finish sort of going beyond that. Okay. All right. I promise, Elaine, I will let you speak next because you were there, or at least I think you were. But at any rate, they asked to have a meeting with us, which we had in December. It was December 7th, as a matter of fact. Sharon, Elizabeth, Will, Russell, and two people from City Planning, Aska and Eric Botsford, who is the Manhattan director for DCP. We explained our application. We explained the application as best we could, which was, I think, pretty well. And then Eric jumped in and began to speak at great length about how City Planning had done such a wonderful job on mechanical voids. I know I'm editorializing, and I shouldn't. About how the City Planning and the city had acted on limiting mechanical voids, but that height limits were, quote, a non-starter. And he said that the Department of City Planning, not the commissioners, the Department of City Planning finds appealing the rhythm of very tall and small buildings making up this, making up the avenues. He said that, appealing rhythm.
He won't get that appealing rhythm if this goes through.
No,
they're all going to be tall buildings.
We're all well aware of that, Michelle. But at any rate, that was really the sum of the meeting, and so anyway, that's where that frankly is where we were. And he's uninterested in considering any of the possible ways to, okay, if you don't want to have a height limit, then what if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? No, not interested. The opinion of Eric Botsford, who is the director, Manhattan director for the Department of City Planning, is that they've done enough for the Upper East Side and go away.
So
that's a fair.
does that pretty
fair
well
consideration.
eliminate what Friends and Civitas is doing as well?
No. Well, yeah, but they'll be whatever. They'll also get.
So he
So,
doesn't
so
like his tax base.
can I jump in just for a second and
Sure.
just let me switch hats and wear a Civitas hat for
Right,
just
right.
a moment. I want you to know that Civitas began looking at this issue early in 2016. And, unlike the community board has, the benefit of having some access to money. But Civitas had to raise almost, I would say, $50,000 in order to hire a planning firm to develop a proposal to submit to city planning. A difficult process, but every penny raised from residents of Community Board 8. And in putting together the pre-application statement, which was put together by the planning firm BFJ, a very good planning firm here in New York City, well-renowned planning firm in the city. And we submitted a pre-application statement, went through the same process that Community Board 8 did, by the way, and met with the department. I was not at that particular meeting, but met with the Department of City Planning to discuss the pre-application statement, which actually had a building height of 350. As opposed to the community board's building height of 210. And the rejection of the proposal was stunning, just completely stunning. And again, I have to emphasize that for this type of initiative, Civitas had to raise the money from Community Board 8 residents, and we were successful in doing that. The communication that we received from the Department of City Planning was not unlike what we heard, by the way, at the community board's meeting. It was a dismissal that was just stunning, absolutely stunning, in that it left no way to rejigger, to tweak, to tweak that tweet, to tweak the proposal. It was, I think the response was a period at the end of the sentence that appeared in the last chapter of a book before finally closing the cover. And so my thought, having been through this twice, because it was, we really needed to see, what would happen with Community Board 8's proposal. And here we are again, essentially, as a community overall. I'll have to tell you that I'm really, really concerned about any type of knee-jerk reaction. I think we need to be very, very careful how we proceed, given the dynamics of the city overall, you know, vis-a-vis the issues around the lack of housing units, the fact that we don't have 421A any longer is critical. The need for the city to be the city of yes, though they told this community board twice no. But with that said, I think this committee and Community Board 8 overall, and the district overall needs to be very, very careful in terms of how we proceed, because in both instances with the community board's efforts, as well as Civitas's efforts, a great deal of energy, of money, of time has already been spent on this. And the emotional toll of everyone involved at the community board level, at the community level, and certainly at the community organization level has been very, very disheartening. So we have these rejections, and with these rejections, I am not thinking that we should blame city planning, that we should blame the mayor, that there are a lot of moving parts, and in coming together again over these issues, we just have to dig a little bit deeper to see how we might be able, and I think that Adam's proposal, by the way, is certainly a start, but I think that we might be, Adam Wall's proposal, I think that we might be able to think about how we could move forward in the face of these rejections with the department as a partner, with the community board as a partner, with the community board, community-based organizations as a partner as well. And this really is an opportunity to think far outside of the box, because we've looked at this to the extent that we can with the parameters that we thought that we were comfortable with, and now we need to look at something. I think we need to really dig deep and look at how we might be able to advance our agenda in a collaborative manner, and to see if that's at all possible.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. I'm Peggy, Valerie, Elizabeth. If you guys could just hold for a second, because I know that Elaine was strenuously wanted to comment on the origins or something of this, and so I think we should let Elaine, who was here then, speak to this.
Thank you. I'll give you a brief piece. And Sharon, thank you for your perspective as the head of Civitas. At the meeting we had with city planning, and I said earlier, every staff person represented a local elected official and borough president. In no way were we turned down. there were discussions, and I can remember an expression that was used to me, to all of us, that the Upper East Side has to do its fair share. I asked, what does fair share mean? And the commissioner from Manhattan, I forget her name, backed down and said, I think that was the wrong word. And then I went on to alliterate what we as a community, Upper East Side and Yorkville, have done as our quote, fair share. Their pressure point was that we got the Second Avenue subway. I said, we didn't get it. We went through hell during it, but everybody else in other boroughs even enjoys it. But getting to our application, we were not turned down. And city planning said, in the end, they were working with us. Tuck had done a fantastic presentation. We had all communicated, and in no way were we turned down at that meeting. We were aware of, quote, a civic group that was turned down. We all knew who that was. That wasn't our issue. We had laid out what the plan was, what the parameters were, and the staff were to work with us. We heard nothing about, no, you cannot do this. We gave them the history of development on the Upper East Side in Yorkville. We explained how we got some of the tall buildings, and I mentioned this. So that was not in any way our experience. And therefore, the community board continued to work on this. I worked on it until I was no longer co-chair. But I've been involved because I'm a native born to the community and I want to see us preserve a livable city and a livable community. So what happened all of a sudden, that city planning staff would call for a meeting, and that meeting didn't include all the elected officials. Whereas when we met, we had every single person with us, their staff, not them individually. So I really question where this is coming from. And legally, the staff has no role or right to deny this. And so I hope we're going to move forward. I'm very clear. I don't want to get into every piece of that meeting, but it was a very strong, excellent meeting with us coming together and understanding and committing to moving forward. They understood we wanted to protect affordable housing. We wanted to protect the small retailers, the retail space, the tenements, etc. They're fully aware of what we were doing. So this seems to have come out of left field. And I'm sorry, I'm not part of the community board to have been partaking in that, because I sure would have spoken up a lot differently than what I'm hearing. So as a community member, I'm committed that we will work on this. We all spent, I don't want to tell you how many years on this. And to all of a sudden, some little group of staff people come in and say, no, that's not how it works in city government. And with our expertise, we will move forward, I hope, with or without the community board. But I believe the community board has to move forward because you have all the community members who've come to these meetings over the years, 400 or 500 people supporting the change to make sure we have a livable community. So we can't turn them down. I know they're not, most of them, on the hearing tonight or meeting, but if they were, they would not be happy. They're willing to do petitions. They're willing to do the photography that needs to be done. We know what has to be done. So I just want to give you that background, that I do not understand where this is all coming from, and I just hope we move forward. Thank you, Anthony, for letting me.
Yes.
Sorry.
And just to clarify, with Civitas, we did receive a letter. There was not, there was no meeting. The community board had, a meeting via Zoom with the Department of City Planning, and that's how we were at, that's how the community board was advised that the application would not be moving forward, would not be advanced. That's number
They were
one.
not
And
advancing.
secondly, I beg your pardon?
They were
Yes.
not advancing it. They were
Yes,
not saying
yeah,
we
thank you.
couldn't, that they were not advancing it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I appreciate that. And I also want to mention that with the meeting that Civitas had with the Department of City Planning, there was no indication at that meeting that that the proposal was going to be rejected. So we were surprised to receive the letter in the mail. I
Okay.
think Peggy,
Yeah.
you want to?
Yeah, thank you. I do want to ask a question. So thank you very much, Elizabeth, for bringing us up to date on this bad news. I just, you mentioned, Elizabeth, that you said we will move forward and get this going. What are the plans to move forward at this point? Or is it what Elaine said, that you'll gather together the community groups, or what is the plan to move forward with the application?
Well, I don't think that we have them specifically now, and I hope that this meeting would have come forward with ideas, but the things that we should be doing, I think, is talking to the elected officials, talking to the Department of City Planning. I just got an email because I asked the borough president's zoning people to find out because I couldn't see, Valerie can't see, none of us can see how the the department, as opposed to the commissioners, can actually say they will oppose and will not work on it. So we'll work with, they made some suggestions that we'll, then it came just too late.
You'll make suggestions back to the planning commission?
They said, suggested somebody to call. We'll call that person at the City Planning Commission, and then I think that we discuss the situation with all the elected officials, because they all did support. We have a new draft, but I think we have that. But then and this is just my view, is when you have a situation that is very wrong and a solution that is very good, I think that it's almost irresponsible to say, well, how are we going to do it? And it wasn't. I've done the sliver law. That wasn't so hard, but it was hard to get them to do it the right way. But they did. The Madison Avenue height limits, the staff was totally opposed to, and they wouldn't let it out of the department. So the underhanded way we did it was we applied for what the department wanted and got the commissioners to change it to what was right. So these things aren't easy. And in this particular time, it's harder still. But I think that's why I'm not at the movies. I'm at a zoning and development committee, because I feel, and I'm getting hungry, come to think of it, but I think that this is, this is something that is very important to the city, very important to the neighborhood, and to do it right. And I think one of the big flaws of the administration's thinking and so on. They come up with great ideas to do something, but they never look at the unintended consequences. And I think that we've examined that. We've got it right, and I think it's good for the city and getting the elected officials, the civic groups, and so on ahead. You know, we just have to live longer and somehow continue and get it done.
If I may say, it seems to me that it would be helpful also if you had more of a voice from voters in general. I mean, I don't know how you get that, petitions or some other means, but beyond just elected officials, people, residents of the community might get the attention of city officials. We're the voters, so seems like people on the street ought to be brought into the process.
Yeah, I think if a politician on the Upper East Side runs on the program of building taller and taller and taller buildings, he'd be very lucky to be elected rat catcher, and he certainly wouldn't get much farther than that. It's really, it isn't just the committee or something. It is the community, you know, and nothing like a 500-foot building to be near you to convert you to reasonable zoning. But you know, we really this was only a month ago, so we haven't got the army ready, but we will, at least I hope, we will continue and investigate every avenue of moving forward.
Okay, let's go to Valerie and then Elizabeth Rose.
Well, I'm a little conflicted here because, you know, I wasn't at the meeting that Elaine was at, but I was definitely at a meeting with the then borough president and many elected officials and the city planning commission. And I feel like they listened to what we had to say, but they were not interested. And I find it interesting, whoever Eric, has Eric been around for a while, Bootsma?
I don't know.
That's the first meeting you've had with him? Or
Will is nodding, so we'll say yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I think he was involved in the rezoning related to some of the things that happened at the end of de Blasio, right, Will? I think, well, what I'm trying to say is, I think, you know, if somebody makes a comment, we've done all we're going to do for the Upper East Side. I think, you know, when you look at what happened with the Longfellow Tower, there is a plan for the Upper East Side, and it is for tall towers. And I think we have to accept that. I mean, not accept it, but that is the vision that the city of New York has for the Upper East Side. And we're going to fight like hell for affordable housing and all the rest of it. But the rest of the city sees the Upper East Side as the place to put all the tall towers. So we have a very daunting task in front of us. And I think that we may have to reimagine what our proposal is. And we have to come to grips with not, and there are going to be a lot of people on this call right now who are going to disagree with me, but not every tall tower is a bad tower. A lot has to do with how skinny it is, where it's located, and what, God damn it, we're going to get for it in exchange. And I think if we approach whatever proposal we're going to have going forward with, like, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there for now, bonus points for a school, bonus points for affordable housing, bonus points for infrastructure, bonus points for modernizing and maintaining a park. This is how we're going to be able to get all the things that we want. And we're going to have to be strong about it. And we're going to have to recognize that that's what people want. They see the Upper East Side, and especially because of all our life science and health science neighbors, nobody seems to recognize us as a real residential neighborhood. We have to be fighting for that. And we have to be crafty and innovative, like we all are, to be able and use what we have, which is, quite frankly, the most valuable real estate in the city of New York. And we need to try to get city planning to be on our side and say, okay, how are we going to work together to do all the things you want to do? We're ready to say yes, but give us something to say yes to. And I think that's really the approach we have to have. And I think we have to enlist the electeds in that. And I think we need to invite the man from the top, and I don't mean the mayor. I mean Dan Garodnick, who used to represent this neighborhood, knows what this neighborhood is about, and find out why we're getting such a cold shoulder from his, quite frankly, subordinates. And that they don't seem to know our neighborhood, because for somebody to say at a meeting, we've done enough for the Upper East Side, that's almost like a declaration of war. I'm sorry, Sharon, but with all the hard work that we have done with all of these proposals and our requests for affordable housing, et cetera, for somebody to come into a meeting and say that, that's already a bad sign as to wanting to be a partner with us and to get things done. And honestly, there was no elected in the room. I don't see how anybody could get away with saying that to us, that they've done enough for us. I would like to have had him say, can you list one thing that you've done for us in the last 5 years? You certainly didn't go out and protect R8B for us a couple of months ago. I mean, you haven't really done, in my experience, anything. So I think we have to kind of accept where we are to a certain extent and be deft and smart and talented enough to move forward with maybe a different plan. Because, why should we be the only piece of Manhattan that has absolutely no height limits? I mean, okay, you want to say no more height limits for the Upper East Side? Well, take them off of Chinatown. Take them off, other places. If it's good enough to have up and down along our avenues, then why isn't that good enough for downtown? What's so special about that? And those people are fighting equally as hard to preserve their height limits. And we don't even have any. I mean, so anyway, that's the long and short of it. I just think we have to use these meetings to be creative. I think maybe we have to, maybe the invitation to Dan Garodnick doesn't come and he doesn't come to a zoning meeting, but we get Russell to say that he should come to a land use meeting, and we use an extra meeting because we have so much to discuss in zoning, and we invite him to a special meeting where we can have this, or, we get the electeds to sit down and have him come and find out exactly what the plan or what they're thinking about for us. And then we can react, to Sharon's point, in a more thoughtful and present and good way. Because I think some of you had sent this proposal, on the Lower West Side across from Chelsea Piers, how the community board there had presented a proposal for the redevelopment of the entire Chelsea West Side using what had been a women's prison across the street called Bayview Correctional Facility. they were offering up an affordable housing model there. So I think we can be as or even more creative than that community board and get the livable community that we deserve and have been fighting for all this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Elizabeth Rose.
Thank you, Anthony. And I want to thank all of the speakers before me, many of whom I agree with. And I'd like to add a few points. The first is that I have long admired the notion of equity in the proposal of 210 as a height limit for all of the eastern avenues. From the perspective of, I always think that if something is good enough for PS6, that should be the litmus test. If you want to do something to a school in the Bronx, you better be willing to do it to PS6. And if you're not willing to do it to PS6, then you shouldn't be trying to do it for a school in the Bronx. And this is kind of the reverse. You guys have said, the 210 height limit is like, well, we've already protected half of the community. The less wealthy half of the community should receive equal protection. And I admire the equity in that. Although I've never, frankly, thought that it was a particularly practical or likely to be implemented solution. We should remember that 210 is also part of the reason that we are getting buildings torn down and replaced by fewer units. And why we are getting only luxury housing built on the Upper East Side. And I have long believed that what we need is, what Anthony, when I described it to him, very eloquently summarized as a bag of carrots. That if we want, and I'll echo Valerie a bit here, if we want something, what are we willing to give for it? If we want affordable housing, what are we willing to give for it? And 210, I genuinely believe, would have resulted in absolutely the destruction of affordable housing rather than anything else in our community. So I actually don't think we should try to push forward with this proposal. I actually think staff did us a favor. It is in my experience, staff members in an agency will never give a message that has not been cleared with their superiors if they wish to retain their jobs. And while they may have been poorly worded and snarky inappropriately, the overall message, I suspect, had the blessings of people much more senior in the department. And what they were really saying was, we don't want you to put in all of the effort, or you can interpret what they were saying as, we don't want you to put in all of the effort and money that it's going to take to try to move this application forward when it's going to get rejected. And the fact that we were allowed to submit and that they didn't tell us no immediately does not in any way suggest that they ever intended to say yes. The "we will work with you" is not a commitment to "we will ultimately approve this." Like Valerie, I believe that ultimately we have to think of what is it that they want out of the Upper East Side? What is it that they want in the city? And they're very clear that right now what they want is to have more housing units. They want more housing units everywhere. So how can we as a community identify ways to build more housing units on the Upper East Side in ways that are palatable for all of us? And palatable probably means a lot of different things to us, including levels of affordability versus all luxury, including variations of height as opposed to, all one height, very tall, or variations on mass. But ultimately, the goal needs to be more units. And how do we get there in ways that we, the community, and the administration can support? So,
thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Let's Ed and then Marco.
Thanks, Anthony. And I'll be really quick. I apologize. I was paying attention and I was kind of in and out, but just in terms of the affordable housing, I'm so glad Adam is on here. I have to apologize to Adam. He sent me an email a while back because he and I go back and forth with him on this and just on this idea of affordable housing and height limits and zoning. And it's like the original Groundhog Day. And I know I'm the original broken record on this, but until, and I mean this sincerely, until this community board and everyone who comes to our meetings is on the same page in a primer on economics, on how much it costs to build. Because I just go back to the damn land is just so freaking expensive. Pardon my French, but the land, gang, many of you have heard me tell this story. I've learned a lot on this community board in 10 years that served me unbelievably well selling land, if you can believe this, in Northern Virginia, because I actually read all that dense stuff. And what I've gleaned, rightly or wrongly, but it worked in another jurisdiction, is that this housing business, the land is the single biggest fixed cost. Adam, nod or say no or wave or give me a thumbs down, but it is singularly the biggest fixed cost for building any kind of housing. And I've heard from those who have been regional directors of HUD that one of the reasons we had so much affordable housing in the 80s is because the city was just giving it away in the 70s because of the blight. And I would just love to have a discussion about how we're able to manage affordable housing, because we are such at a major tension point here in the expensiveness of the land, the desire to make a buck, and the desire to make a buck on expensive land that we have, and the ability to try to have affordable housing at the 30% AMI level. Talk about a square peg in a round hole. I know I've gone on too long, but I just throw that out there as one of the co-chairs of housing. I'd love for us to have a joint meeting where it's just nothing but a simple micro or macroeconomics meeting to understand, so everybody's on the same page with these developers. Because I must tell you, after 10 years, I grow so weary of, if you only understood, like we're some sort of 4-year-old, like we can't figure out how to add. Okay, this isn't nonlinear calculus, and then we say, okay, but please show us the numbers. Oh, but we can't show you the numbers, but you don't. It's sort of like Dick Nixon in '68. I got a secret plan to end the war. Well, let's see it. Well, you got to elect me before you can see it. Anyway, I've gone on too long. It's too late. I'm being a little too snarky. I apologize, but that was all. Just throwing it out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Just before I get to you, Marco, very quickly, we're sort of in kind of executive session, Wendy. I wish you, and it's very, very late. So I think we'd like to just get close to, at this point, I think we'd just like to have board members speaking. I hope you appreciate that. Okay. Marco.
Thank you. It's easier to analyze and to speculate as long as your vocabulary is great, and just manipulate the words. That sounds great, but at the bottom line, they are empty ideas. Let me give you an example of a real project, what we're talking about. the project 3rd Avenue, 83rd Street. The developer, they said 30% of density. They don't build 70%, they're 70%, and have 440 feet high. What can the benefit the community has? None, none. If we have established a limit with the potential negotiation of that height, then we can get it more dwelling units, which is basically somebody said, oh, we need to have to build more units. Just increase density, period. It's very simple. It's not nothing, this is not a secret. Density can resolve everything. But the problem is we had to create a balanced community. We had to give you all the spectrum of housing properly housed. And if we build in that direction, and if we establish a limit to allow us to negotiate that part, this is a business. This is usually when I when I analyze my projects as a developer. That's what I do. I do exactly what I'm seeing what is my benefits and what I'm gonna give you to them. And right here is very simple. We can say, look, you wanna build a house, a building, you wanna build 30% of density. So that means he built 1/3 what they're supposed to build, because it's luxury housing. Now, you want to have higher? Well, okay, we can negotiate the high as much as we allow in the contextual district. Thanks to those POPs, HPD, hospitals, and private developments. That's what we have, 140 buildings. That's the only thing we have beyond 210. So we have an opportunity to do the right thing. We cannot invent the wheel, it's already invented. And it's the only matter in this case is we had to move to 210. And then in the process, it will come many things. We can negotiate that part, but we can negotiate in order to obtain more affordable housing. So this is a business transaction that we had to start thinking. You want something? Okay, you gotta give it to us something. Otherwise, be careful with the POPs. Let me give you this example. Dan Garovny publicly, he recognized that one day he decided to have a meeting on the POPs. And the super came out and said, listen, you gotta get out. This is a private property. And Dan Garovny explained it to him why he is using that public space. And he was right, by the way. And the super called the police. And when the police came, the police listened who was talking and he left. So that means we have to have a good argument, good elements to negotiate. If we said, oh, build as much as you can, look, so many projects we approve in the community board. It came for removal of the easement. We lose right there 60 affordable units, and the fellow community members, they approve that the 60 affordable units and the 2 easement that we have. So we are part of the problem because we had to start thinking that we just only when it's housing, we discuss housing, but when it's coming the time to stand up and say, listen, you gotta say, you wanna have this easement free, give it something to us, give it at least what are you demolished. But the problem is the community, well, they don't listen. Probably in some of the cases, it's a quid pro quo, this negotiation. And I'm seeing that frequently. So we have to start first from us. When we start saying conscious about what we are looking, what is the benefit for everybody, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Peggy, I hope we're...
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say I was a little concerned by some comments here tonight about the idea of dropping the 210-foot height limit. I would not be in favor of that. I believe that marshaling the community is the way to go, and that we have, if we want this 210 height limit, we can get it if we get everybody possible involved in it and push for it. We saw that that worked last summer with the redistricting fight over the renewal of the change in city council districts affecting our community. There was a huge campaign to prevent that from happening, and we won. It is possible if work is done and people from outside of just the community board membership come together to push for a 210 height limit, then we would get the attention of elected officials. We are voters and they are concerned about getting our vote. This idea that we should just cave under and give up on the 210 foot campaign is just most disheartening to me. And I hope that we will in fact keep fighting for it. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peggy. Be brief, Michelle. I'm really hungry.
I will be brief. I agree with Peggy. I don't want to give up on the 210 because the community board has a resolution in favor of this 210. I think that gives us a mandate to act. I think with the help of this committee, we should put together a petition, get it onto change.org, send it to all of our community groups. I think we have a mandate to do that because we have a mandate for the 210, which to me gives us the mandate to create pathways to get to the 210. I don't think that every bit of this has to be voted on by the full board, but I think, of course, Russell has to be apprised. But as long as we have a petition that backs what we have voted on, as long as we speak to the public and to the press with Russell's permission, only keeping to what we have voted on, I think we are well within our rights to push for community input here. And the way to basically do it is a change.org petition, but each and every one of us would have to send it to our private email blasts or whoever we can get it to so that the community knows to go to that petition to sign. But I absolutely agree that you got to get the community behind us. I think that Dan Garodnick is a key person here. I think we have to talk about how to work with him because we can't put him in the position at this moment of being in complete odds with his staff. So that could be a very awkward situation. So I think we need to discuss that a little bit and with the people who actually would go to the meeting, and maybe some representatives that are not on the committee that have worked with Dan and know him well from the past. Anyway, that's my thought, and I hope we go forward on it. You know, they're very quick to cross off the Upper East Side, which happens to be a tremendous tax base for this city. All this affordable housing and all this and all the social programs and everything that you want, but you're pushing your tax base right out of the city. So who's going to be paying for all of this? That never, ever, ever comes into the conversation. So I heartily resent anybody bad mouthing or not considering the Upper East Side as a vital part of this city. I'm done.
Thank you, Michelle.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Anthony, I just want to remind the board that for the first agenda item, we included in that resolution the idea that there should be some negotiations. And in fact, someone had mentioned for the first agenda item, and I think it was Adam, did the board for the first agenda item, offer any type of compensation, for some type of easement? What what I think that we might want to consider with that first agenda item is that we really did ask the board as well as both parties to come together. And so I'm not sure that we should be sticking 100% to our guns, because it really means then that we have not learned from Longfellow. We have not learned from the rejection of this proposal and other proposals that have been presented to the Department of City Planning. So I think we should incorporate, what we have asked, other people to do. We really need to look at, the proposal within the context of what's happening, within the city, within this community board, and also some of the rejections that we have been getting. I'm just encouraging people to again, and I apologize for being a broken record about this, but I do think that we need to pull back just a bit from this reaction and really incorporate, I think the lessons that are there for us to learn. And someone mentioned the West Side. I saw it. I first saw that article about the West Side. Presenting a plan for more housing. It's 4 or 5 paragraphs into the New York Times article, when I read the article, that the land that they're referring to, and this goes back to Ed Herzog's point, that the land that they're referring to is city or state land. You know what? They have let's not use the West Side and the board in reference to that particular area, because they had the land that they could say, hey, we want housing here. Our situation is very, very different. And we, should be looking at, what's good about our proposal. We should look at areas that might be better tweaked, if you will, so that we're not constantly being seen as not in our backyard, or this is what we want and that's the end of that. Thank you, Anthony.
Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. It's now 10:12. If you can't be short, Valerie, I'm going to ask Will to turn you off. Go ahead, Valerie.
I'm short to begin with, but all I want to say is I don't want to be misinterpreted by what I was saying. I'm not saying hands off that the Upper East Side, you can do whatever you want. I'm saying that we need to understand where city planning is coming from and craft a plan. And all I'm saying in regard, and we can get something out of it. And everybody else is viewing us a different way than we are viewing ourselves. And we have to be cognizant of that. And in the negotiations with Longfellow, it was very apparent that no one, I appreciate everything that Michelle is saying, and everybody, it was very apparent that no one is viewing us the way we are viewing ourselves. And it doesn't matter what our tax base is or anything like that. We've got a very hard fight. And like I said, we have to figure out what's best for us, because maybe there is no more as of right on the East Side. It's all a bargain. And you can have different, and it's about the zoning that we put forward for different areas and what we want. And we have a lot of planners here. We have a lot of ideas, and we have a lot of good people that can come up with something that maybe 210 is where we end up for the most part. But we can't just, that plan is not getting accepted. It's just not. And so we've got to go back to the drawing board. and maybe that's a number we come up with in a different way. But what we've proposed has been, I know, Marco, you're saying no, maybe it's 110. Why isn't it 110?
Valerie,
that's all,
Valerie,
that's
your
all.
point is taken. Thank you.
That's it.
Yes. I'm afraid, but Ed,
Motion to adjourn.
So.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Anyone opposed? Very good. Good evening. Thank you.